It's time for Twit This Week in Tech, a very special episode. Devindra Hardawar is here. He's got a new baby. Dwight Silverman's here. He's got a new tech burger. And Nate Langston visits from Bloomberg. We're going to talk about social networks of the future and whether you should sign your newborn up for Instagram, the growth in Boppus. I think Dwight didn't really like that term. And Amazon's reInvent, all the things they announced. It's all coming up next on Twit.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twit, This Week in Tech, episode 695, recorded Sunday, December 2nd, 2018. Friends in Bikinis. This Week in Tech is brought to you by Hopsy, the Nespresso or Keurig, if you will, for beer. And just for the holidays, visit tryhopsy.com/twit and use the promo code TWIT to get the sub-home draft system, 2 mini kegs of beer, 2 Hopsy glasses, and a free membership in the monthly beer club, all for only $99. Terms and conditions apply. And by WordPress. Reach more customers when you build your business website on WordPress.com. Plans start at just $4 a month. Get 15% off any new plan at WordPress.com/twit. And by Audible. For a limited time, you can get 3 months of Audible for just $6.95 a month. Go to audible.com/twit or text TWIT to 500-500. And by Rocket Mortgage from Quicken Loans, introducing Rate Shield Approval. If you're in the market to buy a home, Rate Shield Approval locks up your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. It's a real game changer. Learn more and get started at rocketmortgage.com/twit2. It's time for Twit This Week in Tech, the show where we cover the week's tech news with whatever tech journalists we can scrape together. No, with some of the best names and voices in the business. Like our longtime friend Dwight Silverman, who's been doing this show for, I would say, a decade, right, Dwight?
Oh, probably more than that. When I last looked, I think I may be like the 3rd or 4th longest running or something like that. I was kind of surprised at how far up the chain I was.
Dwight took a hiatus for reasons no one will understand. He got out of tech journalism. Thank God they pulled him back in at the Houston Chronicle. He's responsible for Tech Burger. Tech Burger.
That's right. I tried to get out, and they keep pulling me back in.
Also here from Engadget, another long-time friend of the show, Devindra Hardawar. Always love having you on. He's senior editor at Engadget. Hello, Devindra.
Hey, happy to be here, as always.
There's been a happy event since the last time we talked. A new Hardawar.
A new Hardawar. Sophia Leia Hardawar has been born. She's very loud. She doesn't sleep, and she doesn't let us sleep, but I love her anyway. She's great.
Now, wait a minute. Did you name her for Princess Leia?
I mean, we wanted a vaguely like Hindu name, and that name actually works across Hindi and Spanish, which my wife and I both really like.
Nice.
So there's that, and it sounds like Leia, which is super cool. So I totally went down with that.
Is Sophia a common Hindu name?
No, not at all. Leia is the middle name. That's what we're going for.
Got it. When you go to India, you call her Leia. Here, you call her Sophie. And when you go to Latin America, you call her Sophia. It's perfect.
Her brand will be Sophia Leia. That's my plan.
That's a good brand. Isn't it sad that we have to plan our children's brands?
I'm like, should I register all her social accounts now? Should I just secure that name?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm shocked you haven't. I got Abby Laporte and HenryLaporte.com right away, and I got what it is. I get 20-year you can get a 20-year registration just in case.
Wow.
And Abby's now using hers. I think Henry's still kind of waffling. But I figured eventually they'd get around to using it.
Of course, by the time we get off the show, it will have been registered by somebody else.
Yeah,
so.
Devindra, if you want to take a little time to get that name, go right ahead.
I'll be real fast.
It's a lot, though. You got to go to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You got to go to .com. You got to do everything. It's a lot.
Yeah. I'm hoping by then, like, Facebook maybe just won't be a thing anymore. I don't know. By the time she's using it.
Actually, that's a great question. But before we answer that, let's talk to Nate Langston. He's also here, a European and consumer tech editor from Bloomberg. He joins us from his, it looks like, recording studio in London.
That is what it is. It is a homemade recording studio with a variety of types of sound treatment to sound as good as possible. But I do a lot of podcasting as well in here, so it's pretty well suited for this.
But you're a musician, obviously. I could see a sequencer behind you, a drum kit, a keyboard. What do you do?
Yep. Well, I do play the drums. That's sort of my main instrument. But this is also kind of my home office for when I'm away from Bloomberg. So,
Nice.
it's podcasting, drumming, piano, all that kind of thing.
Your sound's better than mine, man. You got to knock it off. That's too good. You sound really good. It's great to have you, Nate. I know if you watch Tech News Weekly or TNT, you've seen Nate on our shows for many, many years. And we think he was on Twit back in, get ready for this, the days of the cottage.
Yep, I believe so. I think that might have been back in the Tom Merritt era, because I believe I drove with him to the cottage for that show. So I'm not 100% sure. But that was definitely the last time that, if not the only time that you and I have actually met in person. That's going back some years.
It's about time we got you back. I apologize.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So you raised a really interesting question, actually, Devindra. Sophia's 6 months old today. She's not going to be
6 weeks old.
6 weeks old. Sorry.
Yeah.
She's
not so young.
It'll be 13 years before she can use any social network, and 20 years before she'll care. 21 years before she won't care. The question is does it even make sense to register an Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter domain for her?
I mean, just to be safe, I pretty much am. But yeah, I don't know what those services will be. I don't know, in 10 years, what sort of interfaces will kids really be into. It'll be like Back to the Future. The kids complaining, this game's not even holographic. What are you doing playing on like a 2D screen? You
never know, because my 16-year-old now, he just had a birthday, loves 8-bit games. I get maybe because of Minecraft, but all his games look like he bought. There's a nostalgia store in town. He bought a Super NES, and he's playing Mario on it.
That's great.
8-bit. I mean, he wasn't even born when the NES was out, so it's not nostalgia.
That's a classic era of gaming too, so I can see why that sticks around. I don't. What is going to be our nostalgia for Facebook in 10 years? I don't know.
No one will be nostalgic.
Yeah.
Remember those days when you wanted to beat your head against the wall because you kept seeing stuff that made you crazy? Yeah, those were the days.
But, the way I think about it a little bit is if you think back sort of 13, 14 years ago and it's MySpace era or Bebo or Friendster or something, and imagine your parents come to you and say, okay, well, happy birthday. Here's the password to your Friendster account. I mean, happy birthday indeed.
So what's this, Pops?
Yeah. Well, and honestly, if my parents had bought me my domain, like my first name as a domain in the 90s or early aughts, I would have been super happy. I would have loved that. Yeah.
But that's different because they would have they would have been really smart.
Yep.
And prescient and so they would. So that's the thing. You've got to skate to where the puck is going. You don't do what's going to be the thing in 13 years. Maybe Snapchat. I mean, a 21-year-old today is not using Facebook. That's where his parents are.
Yeah, what'll be around then is it doesn't exist yet.
Doesn't exist
I suspect.
Yeah. And I have to say, it really feels like at least Twitter and Facebook, maybe not so much Instagram, but at least Twitter and Facebook are kind of on the tail end of their ascendancy. Is that just me?
I feel like they've gotten big enough, and we're starting to see the pieces start to crumble. They've gotten so big. That's been the goal for all tech companies for the past decade. And now that they're so big, they're influencing elections. They're like, people are using their platforms to incite riots, and they have no idea how to control any of it and doing their best to like avoid responsibility. So it'll probably still be around, but I'm really wondering what tech companies are going to do to like deal with this problem. Once you get so big, you can have some serious impacts.
That's another issue. Yeah. And I imagine there'll be governmental regulation. There'll be societal pressure.
I'm surprised we haven't like dealt with regulation yet, because I'm thinking back, I remember in the 90s, the big thing was like Microsoft antitrust, web browsers in Windows. Oh my God.
I know. Who cared?
What's happening now?
By that time, that Microsoft DOJ and then in the EU, those cases came to fruition. The solutions were ridiculous. I know, Nate, you probably had to face the weird browser ballot system when you first installed Windows. For a long time, it said, choose your browser.
It really did. And you know what? I would take that 1,000 times over what we have on the internet now. In Europe, you go to any website and you get a big banner at the top saying, do you accept cookies? And you get a giant overlay that says, We protect your privacy. Please click here to accept. And then that's on top of all the regular kind of full page ads that you get. I mean, browsing the web has never been less enjoyable these days. I'm not kidding. I'm all for the appification. I mean, it is a horrendous way to surf the web now.
It's a bad solution to a real problem, right?
At least it's your law. We get those cookies banners too, but that's not even for our. It's not even for our jurisdiction.
Right. That's right.
Every site now has we use cookies, and the clear effect of it is the opposite of what regulators intended, which is that people go yeah. And I just get rid of that thing.
Well, it is. It's bad.
Doesn't make you more aware. It makes you less aware.
Well, and Nate, your comment about appification, I think that's exactly what's happened. Is people get more and more frustrated and annoyed with the way the web works for them. Either they're seeking out paid sites that have less of that, or they're moving to apps. I think it's Facebook's primary presence is on apps, is on its app, and it's a lot less annoying that way than it is on the desktop, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
There's some evidence of this because, of course, we had the biggest shopping day of the year last week on Monday, Cyber Monday. It was Amazon's biggest day ever, beating Prime Day. But the evidence is that a lot of the sales that we saw during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Giving Tuesday, which apparently is mostly about giving me something, were about not charities, which you're supposed to do, but giving ourselves things. We're online. A huge number of these were on the phone. Thanksgiving Day, $1 billion worth of commerce on the phone. I can only imagine what the holidays look like now. I don't have to imagine. I know. You eat the meal. You try not to talk about politics. Right? You eat the meal. You try not to talk about politics. As soon as the meal's done, you immediately scatter to look at your phone. The football game's on. You're soporific. You're comatose practically from all that food, and you buy stuff. That's the holidays. Welcome.
That's right.
I'm surprised these things are making headlines still.
Go ahead, Devendra, and then Nate.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just saying, Amazon always sends out this press release every year. It's the same thing, like the biggest day ever on the days you'd expect. So I'm just surprised we're still seeing this. Of course, this is where the commerce is. Of course, this is what's happening now.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like news to me. Yeah.
Adobe somehow got in this business. I don't know how. With Adobe Analytics, they're the ones who now do all the big stats. They say Cyber Monday sales hit $7.9 billion. So it wasn't just Amazon. It was the largest online shopping day of all time in the U.S. Still dwarfed by Singles Day in China, but still a significant holiday. 20% growth year over year. That's what I thought was interesting. Thanksgiving Day and Black Friday, 28% growth year over year. So really kind of a surprising. Saturday and Sunday were also big, new record as the biggest online shopping weekend in the U.S., $6.4 billion. So, you could point to all sorts of economic indicators, but it sounds to me like people in the United States anyway feel like happy days are here again, and they're spending like crazy.
What is Singles Day in China? What is that?
1111, 1111, because it's a single, get it? And I think, did Alibaba create it? They're certainly the beneficiaries of it.
They looked at what Amazon did and were like, hey... Yeah, this is great. Let's do our own big corporate holiday. Yeah.
So Singles Day sales in 2018. Let me see. Business Insider has the numbers. It's half of all of Alibaba's sales happen in one day.
Wow.
Yeah, it is $30 billion. Here's the graph, just to give you a sense of it. $30 billion for Singles Day, Cyber Monday 7.9, Black Friday 6.2, Thanksgiving. I'm still blown away. The Thanksgiving Day sales 3.7 billion, 1 billion of that online, and that's really a big shift. That's like a 30% shift from last year.
By the way, Adobe got into that because of their acquisition of Omniture, which a lot of corporate customers use. We used to use it at Hearst, and so that's where they get all that data is from Omniture.
Now, in the UK, Nate, I mean, you don't do Thanksgiving, but is it still a big day on Friday to shop?
It's become a huge thing. Yeah, Black Friday. It's absolutely everywhere. You know, there isn't a store you can go to pretty much within the whole of Britain that isn't trying to push something to do with Black Friday to you. But it's not even just on the day. Frankly, it's more like a Black Week. And you actually get stuff for several days before the Friday and several days after the Friday. Everyone just, jumps right in. I think one of the interesting things about the UK, though, that always stands out to me as being notably different to the US is that about twice as many, rather that the percentage of people who shop online in Britain is around 20% of all retail sales is done online in the UK. In the US, it's about 10%, according to some recent figures I've seen. So more people are physically going to stores in the US than in Britain. And so I think our average spend online on something like Black Friday actually skews slightly higher just because of the number of people doing it online now.
Yeah, there's actually a new acronym which I'd never heard before. I think it's called BOPIT, which is buy online, pick up. Maybe it's BOP. I don't know what it is. Buy online, pick up in store. BOPIS. Buy online, pick up in store. And that's, I think Walmart chiefly has pushed that. But these brick and mortar stores have actually come up with a clever way of keeping their business going. Mm-hmm. BOPIS was increased this year.
Maybe let's not use the acronym.
But I like it. BOPIS was increased this year 50% over last year. Wow. So It is a hot new thing.
It's great because it's great for the people who don't decide on gifts early enough, because the shipping window, that's the downside, right? For if you're if you just wait to the last minute, being able to buy online, just run to a store and grab stuff is super great. I use that throughout most of the year too. Best Buy has been doing it for a while. It's great. You never have to go searching through an aisle. You kind of just go to the main thing and walk out with the DVD or whatever you need.
Another thing that's changed that might be helping drive this is that Amazon. You used to be able to go to Amazon and avoid sales tax. And now that you have to pay sales tax no matter what jurisdiction you're in, there's no price advantage Amazon over buying at Walmart online and then picking it up. And there's the advantage of no shipping cost, so that might save you money, and the speed, just going down to pick it up. I mean, yeah, and as you say, a lot of people wait till the last minute, although it wouldn't be last minute in November.
Although a lot of the things that Walmart does, they don't actually have in the store. You order it, and then you still wait 2 or 3 days, and then you go get it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes. Walmart in Houston has been experimenting with these towers. They're like self-service kiosks. They're 10 feet tall, and you walk up to it and you put your credit card in and you put a code in, and it's essentially the monolith ejects your product. And so you don't even have to deal with a human in it.
This is the 2001 sequel we did not expect. The monolith is just spitting stuff out at us now.
That's right.
Yeah,
it's sort of just in time. Not exactly just in time. Sort of.
I saw. So there's one more aspect of this too. I think Walmart is doing. You can drive up to the store and they'll bring bags of groceries to your car.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
The most 21st century thing is down in Phoenix, where you order it online. A Waymo comes to your house. You get in the Waymo. It drives you to the store. You pick up the groceries. The Waymo drives you back.
That is pretty awesome. We were actually talking about something on my podcast earlier today that we've got this new rail system that's supposed to be launching in several years' time called HS2. Connects basically the whole of the UK on a massive high-speed track. And the two of the companies, there's Hitachi and Bombardier, who manufacture the trains. They have sort of teamed up to propose that Amazon deliveries and deliveries from other companies should be able to be made on the trains. So you could be sitting on a train and order something that you want, in an hour's time. And when you pass through a station, and it'll be there for you to pick up, or you could order your breakfast and it'll be sitting in your seat when you leave. And it sounds crazy, but you think about what's going on with drone technology and with Amazon's 2-hour delivery thing on groceries. I'm not sure if that's the same in the US, but they have that here. I can totally believe it. I could totally believe it. They did an experiment, I think, in CES a couple of years ago, where they had drones delivering stuff to an autonomous vehicle, and that was supposed to be the future. Is that you want something in the car, and the drone will just drop it through the sunroof. Not even kidding.
What? Okay, so
that's the future.
Devendra, you're in New York, in Brooklyn. It's not so much of a thing here, but we're kind of in the suburbs. Do people pre-order their Starbucks drink and then just jump and skip the line and just pick it up?
Not really. I mean, I'm sure maybe in Manhattan a lot of people are doing that. There aren't as many Starbucks out in Brooklyn. That's not a thing I've seen used too often.
I've heard people complain about it because they're in line, and then people come in the store and say, "There's my blonde juniper latte," and I'll pick it up.
That sounds pretty good, actually. Yeah.
I had one of those. That is the weirdest flavor. This is the new Starbucks flavor: juniper lattes with sage, sugar, salt.
It's just a gin latte.
It's a gin latte, but it doesn't taste like gin.
Great. I love that.
It tastes like it should be bouillon. It tastes like beef.
Wow.
Usually at the Starbucks, there's like a separate place, or at least the ones I've been in,
so that you can pick it up.
Where you walk up, right? You go and you pick it up, and you've already paid for it, so you don't have to go through that process.
Top
but
sellers.
I could see where in New York it would anger people.
Top sellers, and you cover consumer electronics. I know, Nate, for Bloomberg, and Devendra, you're Mr. Engadget. Dwight, I don't know what Tech Burger does, but something like this.
I care.
You care. Top sellers. The Nintendo Switch, #1 on Thanksgiving Day. And, I mean, people want the Switch. That's going to be a biggie. #2 is a category. So on Thanksgiving Day, #5 was something called Hatchie Babies. #2 on Cyber Monday was Little Live Pets. I had to look both of these up. Devendra, get ready because you're facing this in a few years. This is a hot new category of toy plus app. And the Hatchie Babies come in an egg. You get an egg, and then it cracks and hatches, and an ugly as sin stuffed animal comes out that you then have to take care of, like it's like a Tamagotchi. And there's an app involved. Same thing with Little Live Pets.
That sounds pretty cool, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, well, good, because Sophia's going to want these in about 2 years. Red Dead Redemption, #3. Hot game.
Great game.
Although maybe I'm too imaginative, but I just see people Thanksgiving Day going, I would like to shoot Uncle Joe. Maybe I'll just get this game instead. LG TVs, #4.
Pretty much all the OLEDs, I'm sure.
Everyone's buying
those OLEDs up, yeah.
They are gorgeous.
They're so good.
Altered Carbon on Netflix is a terrible show.
Yep.
I think we'll all agree. But boy, does that look good in HDR. It is the worst. It's so disappointing because I love the novel. And there was so much promise in this, and it looks like it's kind of a sci-fi Blade Runner future, and there's some really cool ideas in it. But something went wrong. I don't know what. But anyway, watch it just for looking at it.
Yeah.
I was watching episode 5, I think, and they're in a tube that's lit by daylight, but there's dark stuff. It's clear that most of the energy on the show is spent on making it look good in 4K HDR.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. I think most of the Netflix shows do really well with HDR.
They do.
Daredevil is my favorite demo. Just the first episode of Daredevil.
Yeah.
There's that scene where they walk into his apartment and the neon lights are outside kind of coming in. It's just amazing.
They're literally scripting this stuff so that there's bright, dark in one scene.
And they've got very, very specific guidelines as well about how you have to, the kind of cameras that you have to use if you're doing a show for Netflix.
Oh, really?
They're very, very, they're very, very strict on the technical setup of a production for a Netflix original, like some of these and things like Jessica Jones.
Do they require reds?
Red's one of the cameras that you can use. Yeah, there's a list you can find online somewhere that sort of shows you the, pardon me, the types of cameras that have to be used. And I'm not sure if it goes as far as lenses, but it's certainly cameras and formats. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, they're very aware. I mean, even Stranger Things, there was a significant amount of time spent in a dark, like black room with one guy sitting in the light, clearly, showing off 4K HDR. I think that's kind of interesting. So also after LG TVs, drones, which kind of surprises me. The drones would be on this list of top sellers on Cyber Monday. DJI, Air Hogs, and Sky Viper.
Wow. That's surprising. Yeah.
I thought
what
drones
are people
were done.
doing with these?
Yeah, what are they doing?
I don't know.
Once you see your house from 100 feet, you're kind of done.
Drone selfies. It's drone selfies. Taking pictures of your friends and your party outside. And
that picture where they're close up and it looks like a normal scene, and then they zoom up through the clouds.
Right. Yes.
But I've seen a very effective use for drones actually, which is on dairy farms, and because cows naturally, and bear with me on this one, cows naturally see humans as predators because front-facing eyes, and
because we're going to eat them eventually.
Yeah, but so it's very difficult to actually measure the sort of the well-being and the happiness or comfort, if you like, of cows. So you can actually send drones or use cameras with facial recognition technology specifically for cows to actually get a more accurate reading, because you don't have to have a human being in front of them basically scaring them.
And they're not scared by that thing going.
No, because over the noise of the farm machinery, they're kind of used to it. In a dairy, like an industrialized dairy production. Yeah.
I don't think, though, that dairy farmers are driving this huge Cyber Monday sales, but maybe anything's possible.
Farmers buying drones.
Dell laptops, not any other Dell laptops, which means
makes sense.
I presume Windows. Did Dell do aggressive discounting for Cyber Monday? Maybe that's why.
I didn't see the specific deals, but they tend to have a good amount, and their lineup is just really good. They just launched the G series line of like cheap gaming laptops, and I know people are really into that.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. Another one, kind of like Hatchy Animals and Live Pets, For Real Pets, and Amazon Echo devices. That's no surprise because Amazon did deep discount all their Echo devices. Google tried too, but I think Amazon really kind of owns this. Revenue from smartphones. One day, Cyber Monday, $2.1 billion. That's almost 50% growth year over year. Maybe
amazing.
They should stop calling it Cyber Monday and call it Cell Phone Monday.
But there's an aspect to this that I'm really curious to get some stats on, because it's not really been fully explained. Is in the gaming world, the vast majority of games now on mobile are free to play, and they're monetized with in-app purchases.
Right.
So it's become extremely easy for developers and publishers to do these flash sales on huge amounts of discounted in-game currencies for Black Friday, and it doesn't really cost them anything to do. And I would love to see some really accurate statistics that show just how effective something like Black Friday can be, specifically for in-app payments, because I bet that is a huge market, and it's only going to be getting bigger.
How interesting. I mean, you don't normally think of in-app payments as something you'd go shop for on any particular day. You just, it's Cyber Monday, I'm going to buy me some Fortnite skins.
Loot boxes. But it's more the currency.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
I was watching the Today Show by accident yesterday morning, or Friday morning, I guess it was. And it's the most blatant plug ever. They're showing all the Fortnite physical goods you can buy, including llama pinatas, and you can. This is really going way too far. Physical loot boxes. You don't know what's in them. That's crazy. This game economy has really entered the real world. Mobile on Monday, 51% of site visits. So they're going to have to. See, I thought for a long time they shouldn't call it Cyber Monday because the story of Cyber Monday was it was originally created when everybody waited to shop until Monday, when they came into work for the high-speed internet. But that's obviously gone.
I don't know if that was ever true, too. Isn't it?
Not.
There's a story, somebody just made up that concept.
That's how they named it. But now it is really 51% of sales. It's the first time ever. 51% of sales from mobile. Smartphones and tablets. 34% of revenue, more than a third from smartphones and tablets. That is, online is, we don't need any evidence to prove this, but it's clear. Online is a big deal. The best time to shop, 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Not the best time to shop, the most popular time. They $1.7 billion in online sales between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. Eastern on Cyber Monday.
After the kids went to bed.
Yeah. Right. That's $300 million more than an average day during the year.
So what's interesting about those mobile numbers is that the actual purchases were 50%, but the
Revenue
amount
was less.
of goods were much less than that, which means the average selling price on a mobile phone may be less than when you're buying it on a desktop.
That kind of makes sense. You wouldn't buy a big ticket item on a phone. You might wait.
You're just buying loot boxes.
Loot boxes. Denver, the biggest shopping baskets, followed by San Francisco, New York, Portland, Seattle. Nationwide average up 6%. Customers got more comfortable buying more online and, to your point, Dwight, bigger ticket items online. All right, that's enough. We've gone on way into the weeds on this. I just think it's interesting. I mean, it's such a strange phenomenon. Is it because of the deep discounts that merchants offer? That's why people do this? Yeah. Must be in the UK because there's no Thanksgiving to market.
Yeah, it is 100%. Yeah. People love a bargain. We drink a lot as well, so people get drunk and then 10:30 they start shopping for iPhones.
That's the 10 p.m.
I wish Adobe Analytics would have the drunk shopping stat. That's what I want to see. And 48% were inebriated.
Yep, I can imagine it. Definitely.
Well, speaking of which, it's time to take a break. It's a brand new sponsor, Hopsy. Look at this. This is going to make your holiday party so much better. Sometimes they call it the Nespresso or the Keurig for beer. We had this on Thanksgiving. Let me show you. This is my Hopsy tap. You have this in the house. You put this on the counter. And then you get beer from Hopsy that you actually can subscribe. It brings you beer on tap in the comfort of your own home. And they're having a Beer Week sale. So now's the time to get your Hopsy. I'll show you how easy this is to use. So for the holidays only, you can get the sub home draft system that I just brought out, plus 2 mini kegs of delicious beer and 2 Hopsy glasses, just $99, plus a free membership in the monthly beer club. Here's how the beer comes. I'm going to give you guys choice, even though you don't get. I only get to drink it. I have 2 Hopsies. They get them from all over the country. They partner breweries. This is actually brewed at the Strike Brewery in San Jose, Shoeless Joe Brown Ale, or from the Coronado Brewing Company in San Diego, Guava Islander IPA. Which would you like? Too bad I'm putting the Shoeless Joe in. All right.
That guava sounds good.
I think you'd want a brown ale, wouldn't you, Nate?
Joe. Yeah.
I always want a brown ale.
I think so.
Although, So
in the cap, this is so cool, is the little doohickey, the mechanism. This is kind of like Al Capone's vault here. I don't know. We don't have a shot of this, but I'm going to open this up, and the hatch opens, and you slide the Hopsy in here, and then you have to put the connector through here. So I'm going to slide the beer in here. This is fresh. It's so good. And I'm going to close the top, and then I'm going to close this, seal this up. That's how easy it is to put another mini keg in there and turn it on. Now, it's going to take a little bit to chill. It's going to chill it up a little bit, although you keep these in the fridge so that they're going to be cold to start with. You start by selecting your holiday package. Best sellers, which are your favorite beers from the best craft breweries. I mean, these are really good breweries. You also can choose, I know a lot of you like IPAs and pale ales. If you like those hops, hazy West Coast session and pale ales in there. Or the easy drinkers, summer on tap, from lagers to kolsch's to pilsners. That's probably where I would go. But you see, you can choose beers curated to your tastes. Afterwards, you'll get 4 mini kegs of your choice as part of the monthly subscription plan. Each mini keg stays fresh for 30 days. You want this fresh. The whole point of this is fresh outside of the sub home draft system. And then once you put it in the sub and tap it, you've got 2 weeks to drink it. We really had a great time at Thanksgiving. This was a big hit. To tap this, we had a nice IPA for Thanksgiving. Now is a perfect time to gift yourself or a friend Hopsy, just for the holidays, a great deal. Here's where you go, TRYHOPSY, tryhopsy.com/twit. And if you use the promo code TWIT, you'll get the sub-home draft system, 2 mini kegs of beer. That's basically 2 6-packs of beer, 2 Hopsy glasses, and a free membership in the monthly beer club, all for a low price of $99. Terms and conditions do apply, of course. TRYHOPSY.com/twit, promo code TWIT, the special $99 holiday package. And as soon as this light goes green, I'll do it now. What the heck? tap this out a little bit. Oh,
I feel so left out.
This is so good. I'm getting a nice brown ale. Try hopsy.com/tweet. This is my kind of advertising. I want more like this. Well, we probably buried the lead. The big story of the week, and we all agreed before we started, the Marriott hack. 500 million guests revealed there, and a lot of information revealed about them. This Marriott acquired the Starwood Group, SPG, in 2016, I think. Apparently, what they didn't know is they'd also acquired a system that was hacked in 2014. And not only did they not know it then, although one would think due diligence would have revealed it, they didn't know for another 2 years. So for 4 years, hackers have been roaming the Starwood system and have had apparently full reign. Marriott says we learned about it last week. And they're getting a lot of heat over this. So let me tell you what has been revealed. Almost everybody has a Starwood account, or a Marriott account, and that's probably why it's 500 million people. This is what Marriott said. For 327 million of you, the information includes, quote, some combination of name, address, phone number, email, passport number, account information, date of birth, gender, and arrival and departure information. For another 137 million of you, it also may include encrypted payment card information, but they couldn't rule out the possibility the encryption keys had also been stolen. So they can't say for sure whether that information has leaked out. I have to thank GDPR because without a doubt, there's no way Marriott would have told anybody about this for quite some time. Mm-hmm. They had to. It's 72 hours.
Right.
Yeah, they have 72 hours. Yeah, and companies that are found now to be in breach of GDPR, they face fines. I think it's up to 4% of their global annual revenue.
Jiminy.
So, I mean, you look at a size of a company like that, or any of the big tech companies. I mean, 4% of your annual revenue. That's not a small figure. That's not worth the risk.
So one of the interesting things about this story is that it actually was only the Starwood hotels and people who had stayed there who were affected. It was not people who had accounts with, if you only had accounts with Marriott or Courtyard by Marriott or that brand, but a lot of the press in headlines and sometimes in the stories never made that distinction. It was this was a Marriott hack as opposed to a Starwood hack.
It was the Starwood reservation
system. There's a big
system.
difference,
yeah.
Right.
But let me tell you what hotels: Sheraton, Ritz-Carlton, Autograph Collect. Oh no, I'm sorry. That's right. Autograph Collection, yeah. W Hotels, right. Westin Hotels.
Right.
It's a lot of hotels.
Yes, and although it's it actually is dwarfed by Marriott and the Marriott Group proper. So
that's good news. If there is any good news in this, that's good news.
But here's one thing, and I haven't seen anything on that. So today I didn't know if I had a Starwood account, and I went in and discovered that I did have one, but I don't think I've stayed there since before 2014. I mean, I hadn't since then. But what's interesting is that there's also notification there that Marriott in August had merged its reservation database with Starwood. So beginning in August, they were putting together, so if you had a Marriott and a Starwood account, they actually were merging them, which means it's possible, but I haven't seen anything about this, that the hackers who were in there until they discovered them then began to get access to the Marriott accounts.
So it is
I'm
possible.
Really interested.
Yeah.
It's possible, but I haven't seen anything on that at all.
I mean, we could go on and on about the lax security. Did they not have some sort of intrusion detection system? Was there not some way to know these guys were roaming this database for 4 years?
Well, apparently they were taking the data and encrypting it before they shipped it off. And if I remember reading the story correctly,
the hackers were
the intrusion system, right? The hackers did. The intrusion system was designed to look for data that was moving offline that was not encrypted. So they used encryption on the site in order to move it out.
It's hard for me not to castigate these guys, but please. But
that's how it happened. That's why they didn't catch it.
It's best practices, and most companies will do this, to change encryption keys regularly. Apparently, they didn't do that. I mean, you can go on and on. This is just worst possible practices. Definitely. I'm glad the hackers were using encryption, but apparently Marriott wasn't.
But there's been an interesting move to companies that are using, or rather, companies are contracting third-party security companies that use AI to try and learn the fundamental workings of a network in order to predict and to very, very quickly detect anomalies that perhaps could have got ahead of some of this. And it's been shown a lot of times now to be a lot faster and more effective than some of the previous ways that people have tried to stop this. But I just don't get the sense that it's ever really going to stop. Someone's always going to be ahead of the game. Yeah. And I think the comment, Leo, that you made about the timing of the acquisition and did nobody know this happened? Even, that's happened before. We saw that with Yahoo, with the Verizon acquisition, and it knocked a huge amount of value off Yahoo's sale price to Verizon when it came to light that they had this hack that affected like 3 billion. Was it 3 billion?
3 billion
Yahoo accounts?
So before you go say, wow, this must be the worst breach of all time, 500 million people, it's not. It's the third. It's the third worst. But number 1 and 2 are Yahoo. 3 billion, 500 million for Yahoo. 2 different breaches. Yahoo, as you point out, Nate, actively hid this from Verizon. It's pretty clear they actually knew about it and didn't tell Verizon.
And we saw similar with Uber as well. With Uber had a massive data breach that, if you remember, it was essentially tried to be covered up. This was prior to Dara Khosrowshahi taking over the company, and a lot of that got publicized because of that. But yeah, I mean, this stuff just it keeps on happening.
Yeah.
No, you never learn. They never learn.
Well, maybe they'll learn. Brian Krebs, if you're running an enterprise that has customer data, you ought to learn there's some pretty severe penalties from GDPR. And I expect Congress will, at some point, if they ever decide to do anything, will act on this. A number of members of Congress, U.S. senators, have said there needs to be jail time and severe fines. We're not going to see the end of this until there is. Maybe that's just grandstanding. I don't know. Brian Krebs on security talks about what companies should learn from this. And number 1 is that cybersecurity has to be part of the culture. It can't be an afterthought. It's not a necessary evil. It literally has to be job 1, part of the culture. But he also has lessons for individuals. And, for most of our listeners who aren't running major enterprises, my suggestion, if you are, you might check with, some good security people. But we have a sponsor that's an intrusion detection system that's really awesome. It's those Thinkst Canaries, and they look like they would have discovered this immediately because you disguise them as NAS or a Windows share or a file, payroll or something, just something attractive to bad guys. And the minute they touch it, either try to open it, try to enter a password, do anything, it immediately phones home. Obviously Marriott had nothing like that on these systems. For individuals, Brian says, you got to accept 2 unfortunate and harsh realities. Reality number 1, bad guys already have access to personal data points you may believe should be secret but aren't, including credit card information, social security number, mother's maiden name, date of birth, address, previous address, phone number, and yes, even your credit file, thanks to Equifax. Reality number 2, this is really important, any data point you share with a company will, in all likelihood, eventually be hacked, lost, leaked, stolen, or sold, usually through no fault of your own. I had somebody call the radio show, said, well, if I use 2-factor authentication, is that better? No, it isn't, because you're secure, but Marriott is not. And he says, if you're an American, it means, at least for the time being, your recourse to do anything about it when your information is hacked, lost, stolen, leaked, or sold is nil. Nothing you can do.
I love it.
Marriott, well, you know what they're doing? The usual. They're offering a year's worth of service of cyber monitoring from a company owned by security firm Kroll that advertises the ability to scour cybercrime underground markets for your data. He says, should you take them up on it? Well, it can't hurt as long as you're not expecting it to prevent anything.
I mean, Sony did the same thing when the Sony PlayStation Network hacked. I mean, that's not a consolation prize. That should be monitoring. Given to, well, thanks very much. Well, how about do something? And
then what if I find it? What are people supposed to do? I see ads all the time from Experian saying, "Hey, credit monitoring, we'll monitor the deep dark web looking for your email address." Yeah, and then what? When you inevitably find it, all you have to do is go to haveibeenpwned.com and you'll immediately see that your stuff is out there.
And the Web Watcher thing that Starwood offered up, that Marriott offered up, is essentially just a corporate version of Pwn to Own. I went and checked both of them, and essentially the same things that were in Pwn to Own were also in the Web Watcher.
Have I been pwned? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Troy Hunt's great site, which has all of the. He doesn't have the Marriott stuff yet. I don't know if he will because it requires. I don't know how he gets this information. Let's see. Have I been pwned? Oh, no. My email address has been pwned on 20 breach sites, found on 2 paste bins. So what am I supposed to do about it? Nothing. Adobe.
Change your password.
Apollo. Yeah. I mean, by the way, the people who are really going to be bit by this is people who used the same password on the Starwood login that they did for everywhere else, because all of those sites are now breached, right?
This should be a good chance for the password managers to really sell what they're offering here, because you want a really crazy complex password across everything. We were just talking about GDPR before and like the implementation of it and kind of how that's ruining the web experience, but we still need something like that in America. We need some sort of like greater regulation when it comes to cybersecurity and things like that, unfortunately. Yeah.
Brian says if you use the same reuse passwords, you're screwed. So stop. He says you should probably freeze your credit files with the major credit bureaus. You should regularly look at your credit file, but not from freecreditreport.com, which is not free, but annualcreditreport.com. It says plant your flag at various online services before fraudsters do it for you, such as the Social Security Administration, the Postal Service, IRS, your mobile provider. I'm not sure what planting your flag means. Let's click that link.
In other words, get yourself an account at each one of those.
Oh,
it's an email address.
Yeah, that's what you should be doing for Sophia right now, Devendra.
Yes.
Plant her flag
in the next break.
Plant her flag, and just don't trust anything that comes via email. I mean, I am now saying over and over again on the radio show where I talk to normal people, if you're putting it online, you're putting it in public. If you're doing it online, you're doing it in public. Just remember, period. End of.
And the thing is, these massive data leaks, they always get the headlines, and it's important that they do and hopefully get reported on in the right way. But I mean, I had a story for Bloomberg 2 or 3 weeks ago actually about just the number of large websites, large and small websites actually, that are just routinely leaking low-level customer data as a result of just not protecting how their websites are sending data to Google, within things like sitemaps or letting site pages that shouldn't be indexed. And it's amazing. There is personal detail leaking out of something like 20% of the biggest e-commerce websites in the US. I found golf clubs, I found charities, I found restaurants, all kinds of stuff. And some of them, they're only leaking what looks like very innocent data, but it might be full names, address, donations made to certain charities, your state, email address, all that kind of thing. But it's enough for somebody who has that data to be able to, call up that person who may be vulnerable and put on a pretty good impression that they are legitimately from this institution that you paid money to. And it's so common. It is so common, and it just never seems to go away, no matter how many of these breaches we see.
Every time I have a credit card stolen, one of the first things they do to test the credit card number is they donate $1 to a charity. And, you know, some small, often it's a UK charity, I'm not sure why. But the reason is the charities have such lax security that they can almost always put the charge through and without raising any alarms, and that way they know they have a good credit card number. So, yeah, I mean, and you know what? Charities don't have a lot of money. I can understand that. But a company like Marriott really should have better security. Mark
What's
Warner,
that saying that everything has been hacked? We just don't know it yet.
Yeah, or assume that. So I do recommend that you visit Brian's website, because I think it's a very good article on what it all means. And at the end, he quotes Senator Mark Warner, who says, "It seems like every other day we learn about a new mega breach affecting the personal data of millions of Americans. Rather than accepting this trend as the new normal, this latest incident should strengthen Congress's resolve. We must pass laws that require data minimization, ensuring companies do not keep sensitive data they no longer need. And it's past time we enact data security laws that ensure companies account for security costs rather than making their consumers shoulder the burden and harms resulting from these lapses." I hope he does this. That sounds like GDPR, frankly.
Pretty much.
I think that's where we're headed. I think Google knows that. Facebook knows that. Tim Cook at Apple has said we need it.
We were having similar discussions when like WannaCry hit and like was attacking everything
years ago.
And,
right.
Years ago. But it feels so soon. It's like really the only solution is like people, you know, IT departments need to be better, and they need to have incentives to be better about what they're doing. And really the biggest stick we have to make companies do this is regulations. And, you know, that's why Marriott had to admit what happened. Otherwise, they would have tried to keep this quiet for a while, right?
By the way, not because of U.S. law, because of European law.
Yep.
So with a Democratic-controlled House, does that mean that we will be less apt or more apt to get a law like this passed?
That's a great question. You know, we got the best Congress money can buy. And I don't care what side of the aisle it is, Republican or Democrat. But these guys are bought and paid for by these big corporations. And I think
what's interesting about this new House that's coming in is a lot of them are very young. A lot of them may be more tech savvy and may be more interested in visiting this. I think a lot of, particularly on the Senate side, I think it befuddles many of them. Well,
that's true. Yep. And I think that some members of Congress, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, are not bought and paid for. She's very progressive and ran a surprisingly strong campaign in New York. And I think she's going to be a firebrand. But the problem is you need, you know, all 51 votes in the Senate, and you need all 70 votes in the House. And there's so many members of Congress that are compromised by big money contributions from companies like Marriott that I just think it's hard. I think it's very hard to expect Congress to pass a law that makes it harder to do business in this country.
Yep.
Sad but true.
Sad but true.
I should give you a positive. Before we take a break, let's leave you with a positive note. The New York Times, great article this week. We've all seen them, the pop-up alerts in Windows that say, this is from support.microsoft.com. Microsoft warning alert, malicious pornographic spyware riskware detected. Please call us immediately. Do not ignore this critical alert. If you close this page, your computer access will be disabled to prevent further damage to your network. Your computer's alerted us it's been infected with with a pornographic spyware and riskware. Whatever a riskware is. The following information is being stolen: financial data, Facebook logins, credit card details, email account logins, photos stored in this computer. Contact us immediately so our expert engineers can walk you through the removal process over the phone to protect your identity. That'll be $300. These pop-ups and pop-ups just like them match phone calls we've been getting for years from, I got one from Windows. I'm driving in my car. Your computer is infected. Well, Microsoft has worked with Indian police in New Delhi, and they've traced a lot of these to boiler rooms in New Delhi, which is apparently, I thought Bangalore was India's capital for call centers, but I guess it's New Delhi. And a lot of these guys doing these scams, and a lot of the people, the texts you'll get when you call these numbers, are actually, by day, real tech support call centers that moonlight at night to hack you.
They got all the equipment right there.
We're right there. We got the. We just go right ahead. On Tuesday and Wednesday, police from 2 Delhi suburbs raided 16 fake tech support centers, arrested about 36 people. Last month, 24 people were arrested in similar raids on 10 call centers. These are scammers who have extracted a lot of money from mostly, I would say, elderly victims, American and Canadian, with the pop-ups. The victims would then be offered a package of services ranging from $99 to $1,000 to fix the problem. Microsoft did a survey, and according to Microsoft, when these pop-ups show up or people call, about 5% of people who see them respond. 5%. And once they respond, about 6% actually hand over money and allow these guys remote access to their computers. The advice from a researcher who studied this, Najme Miramir Khani, who did a research paper from Stony Brook University. She estimated that a single pop-up campaign spread over 142 web domains brought in $10 million in just 2 months. She said, the best thing, just don't pick up the phone.
It's true.
Don't stand away from the phone. By the way, you get ready, because the next thing that happens in the next 3 months is IRS calls, also fake. And I guess we should point out that neither the IRS nor Microsoft will call you or put pop-ups on your screen, that they're scammers. And, you know, the sad thing is that it often is elderly people. People who are less sophisticated technologically. I hear from people all the time. We got an email yesterday from a guy whose aunt just keeps answering these. It's not once, but just keeps doing it. And he said, what should I do? I said, get her a Chromebook.
And it's great that smartphones are getting better about this too, right? Because with iOS 12, I'm getting all those alerts like this is a scam call. I know Android is doing really well too. I like the auto responses that we've been seeing. So the tech is getting better to, I guess, take care of some of this. But yeah, on desktops, we're just open.
Yeah, have you used the call screening thing on Pi where it, call comes in and you can press a button and then it will say this person's not taking calls until you identify yourself. You have to identify yourself and then you get a chance to screen it. I haven't used it either, but
I haven't used it. I got one of those calls in while Sophia was screaming in my arms, so I was tempted to just like answer the call and put the phone in front of the baby.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Response. Yeah.
Well, that's very much like Google Voice. Google Voice lets
the duplex thing.
Right.
No, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I think they got it from Google Voice. Yeah,
right.
But it's on all Android Pi devices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a lot of carriers also get intercepted now at the carrier level, texts and phone calls. I am a T-Mobile customer, and I will see coming from them. And it's definitely from them, scam call or spam call. So the carriers are helping too.
But it does beg the question, if it's that easy to identify them, why do they even let them through? I guess false positives would be a problem. You don't want to block somebody's mom.
I had I was AT&T previously, and AT&T has an app where they do block them. They don't let them come through at all, and you could go through the app periodically. It has a log, and if there's something there that you should let through, you can actually whitelist it from there. So that I don't think T-Mobile has the same thing, but that was very helpful on AT&T.
Yeah, I mean, if there's not that much harm if you send it to email, or voicemail, right? Because you'll at least get the message. I don't answer any. I honestly, so plagued by spam calls, robocalls, all that crap. I just don't even answer the phone unless I know that number. I don't answer the phone, and I figure if it's important to leave a voicemail, and I can respond right away if I'll see the voicemail. So if you call me, that's why I don't pick up, Mom. What's your number, Mom? I never saw that one before. Microsoft says they get 11,000 complaints about these scams every month. Its internet monitors spot about 150,000 pop-up ads for the services every day. I mean, everybody knows this goes on. There have been some Americans doing it, too. Apparently, the authorities arrested some folks in Florida and Ohio for doing this, but the backbone, according to the New York Times, of the illicit industry is in India because they got the call centers. We got trained personnel ready and willing to hack your system. I have to remember this, plant your flag. That's a good term. Mm-hmm. Plant your flag. Sign up for every account you can now so somebody else won't. Well, we're going to take a break. Devendra Hardawar is here. He's senior editor at Engadget, brand new papa. So is Sophia in a soundproof booth right now, or? She
is in the bedroom, which is a couple rooms away with my wife. But yeah, it's. I wish we had like a nice little soundproof booth. I feel bad for my neighbors because in the middle of the night she's just going for hours sometimes. Yeah,
that's part of the deal.
Yeah, it is.
It's part of the deal. There's nothing you can do about crying babies. People sometimes get upset on an airplane when a baby's crying. I just, I come over. I tell the parents it's okay. I've been there.
Yeah.
You want me to hold the baby? It's just, this is...
They give out earplugs now, so it should be less of a problem. Yeah.
That's the
Pass out earplugs to your neighbors.
I've actually seen people do that when they get on a plane with a baby. They'll have a little package to hand to the neighbors. Do you do that, Karsten? That's really cute, with like snacks and earplugs and say, hey, I'm sorry. I know the baby might cry. Thank you for understanding. You do that, Karsten? I'm impressed.
I did that.
Your kid's 12 years old now.
No,
you still?
Yeah, I still do that. No, I did that. I had to go back east for my father-in-law's funeral when my second son was 2 months old. So I did that.
I think that's I like that idea. I think that's really good. Also from the Tech Burger, Houston Chronicles Tech Pages, the fabulous Dwight Silverman. He's back, baby. Fabulous. Just don't make him sing. He can act, just don't make him sing, apparently.
And just don't call me a fabulist either. So.
Not a fabulist. No, that would be wrong. And we're very happy to have Nate with us, Nate Langson. He is tech editor at Bloomberg. He does consumer reporting for Bloomberg as well, consumer electronics reporting, and is apparently a fabulous drummer. What kind of?
I wonder who told you that.
What kind of drumming do you do?
I do what's often referred to as technical metal, or quite jazzy stuff, quite fast, quite technical.
Technical metal.
That's serious.
Is it?
Yeah.
Because you have to be right on the beat.
Super fast, super serious.
Yeah. And stuff like any sort of progressive rock metal fans out there will have heard of Dream Theater.
Oh yeah, I love Dream Theater.
I play a lot of that sort of thing.
Oh, that's great. Dream Theater is awesome.
Yep, big fan. Big fan.
Thank you for being here, Nate. I'm sorry it's been so long. We will have you much more regularly from now on. Now that I know you're a drummer. Drummers are always
I look forward to it.
Our show today.
Give us a demo.
Yeah, go on over, sit down at the kit. Hit the skins, man.
Maybe a little later. It is quite late here in Britain.
Oh yeah, that's true. I saw we were watching a show that only had a drum soundtrack. What was it? It was it was Get Shorty. You're right.
Get Shorty, yeah.
Yep.
Great show. Great show.
It's a new is it Netflix original? It's
on
Epix.
Yeah. Nobody watches that channel, but it's great that it's on Netflix now.
But it's moved over to Netflix.
That's how we saw it.
Yeah.
And
it's great.
I love it. It's nothing like the novel or the movie. Kind of a similar premise, but kind of like what was that movie that was just all the was it Birdman? But it's just
Birdman had a lot of that. Yeah,
it was just drumming.
Yeah.
But I thought it worked quite well. I didn't notice it for the first 6 episodes. Then I realized, they're too cheap to get a score. Huh? But it's a good movie. I like it. Good show. Our show today brought to you by WordPress, the place to make your... Now, you want to plant your flag? The single most important way to plant your flag is to have a website. That's your home on the net. Whether you're an individual or a business, plant your flag. I'm going to use that. That's perfect with WordPress. WordPress.com makes it easy. They take care of the hosting, the security, the software updates. All you have to do is create some content. And whether you're a young person, if you're a young person, I tell teenagers this all the time, You want to make sure that when people search for you, they don't find that stuff that your so-called buddy's posting about you. They find your page with your best stuff on there. And yeah, you might say, well, I have a Facebook or a Twitter. No, that doesn't count. That's not your site. That's Mark Zuckerberg's site. That's Jack, what's his name's site. You need your own site at WordPress.com. And when plans start at just $4 a month, there's no reason not to. I've recently kind of pulled out of all the social media stuff, and I post my pictures. When I have an urge to Instagram, I post it at leolaporte.com. When I have an urge to write, I post it at leolaporte.com. That is now my place on the net, and I own it. You can upload images, video, audio, and more. You don't have to use YouTube. You just put your video right there. It's a great place to put a podcast. You can import and export content to and from your WordPress website because it's yours. It's your site, your home, your content. They have built-in SEO, search engine optimization. If you're a business, that helps you show up better on Google, social media linking, so your customers, your fans, your readers, can post links to your stuff on their Twitter and their Facebook. Help you promote. Great marketing tools, too. And if you ever have a question, a 24/7 support team that's there when you need it. And they're smart. They're nice. You need your own website. And if you struggled in the past because it's been hard or complicated or expensive, I found the place for you. WordPress.com/twit. 32% of all websites run on WordPress. 32% of all the websites in the world, like a third of all the websites in the world, run on WordPress, including some of the biggest brands, the biggest companies, and even a few little bloggers like me. WordPress.com/twit. If you go there right now, you'll get 15% off any new plan purchase. WordPress.com/twit. 15% off your brand new website. Look no farther. I know you want to make a website. This is the easiest way to do it. And if you have a friend like Devindra just had a baby, you should make SophiaLeahHardawar.com and set up a site for him and give it to him as a gift. That's a good idea.
I actually just set up a WordPress site too. It is fantastic. Easy. It's so good. Yeah.
And I love the templates look good. And
a little known fact, Leo, WordPress was born in Houston.
Is that where Matt's from?
Yep, he was originally from Houston. He attended the High School for the Performing and Visual Arts. I believe he was a saxophonist.
I had no idea.
And he wrote it, and he co-wrote it here. There was somebody, I think, in the UK he worked with, and a blogger here named it for him. He was trying to figure out a name for it, and Christine Tremolay came up with the name WordPress.
Oh, dang. Oh, I know Matt, and I love, I started using WordPress back then in the early 2000s, and I've been using it ever since. That's really interesting. I didn't know he was from Houston. Mm-hmm. I figure Matt Mullenweg, he must be from Holland or somewhere.
Yeah, his family still lives in Sugar Land near here.
Sugar Land, Texas.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nice. Let's see. We already did all the Cyber Monday shopping. Although we didn't do all the Amazon stories. Amazon, and there were quite a few this week at Amazon Renew. What is it? Amazon... What is it? Reinvent. Something. Amazon had an event.
Yeah.
And they announced a crap load of stuff, including this car, which I immediately ordered. It won't be out till March. AWS Deep Racer. It's a fully autonomous 1/18th scale race car. It's to help developers learn machine learning. $249 on Amazon, although they said it'll be $400, so I don't know. You're gonna get hands-on literally with a machine learning technique called reinforcement learning. And then they're gonna have like races. There'll be a Deep Racer League. I thought this was hysterical. Of all the things Amazon announced, the weirdest one. Anybody buy one of these, or is it just gonna be me racing against myself? 4-megapixel camera, 1080p resolution. It's got 802.11 AC Wi-Fi, USB ports, 2-hour battery life. Now you want one, right? It runs Ubuntu. And
now you've sold me.
Now I want it. Robot operating system and the Intel OpenVINO computer vision toolkit. This would be a great holiday gift. It'll come out March 6th. Here is a piece of paper that says, I bought you this. You'll get it in March.
They also announced a managed blockchain feature.
Yeah, so for years, Amazon said, we'll never do blockchain. And then they did.
Right. Well, it's just
never
a ledger.
Say never.
Never say never.
Yeah, it's just a ledger, so it gives those who want it, they have that as part of their cloud services.
I mean, a lot of what reInvent is about was AWS cloud services. And here's the list of all the product announcements at Amazon reInvent. 13 new machine learning services, 8 new storage services, 3 services to build and deploy faster, 4 new capabilities that make it easier to build IoT applications, AWS ground station. This might be the weirdest one if you're a satellite operator. Ground station as a service, or GSAS. It's a new service that makes it easy and cost-effective for customers to download data from satellites into AWS global infrastructure regions for analysis and things like that.
I wonder if that's part of Blue Origin, part of Bezos's space.
Yeah,
initiative.
at first I thought maybe, but then remember that's Bezos's personal investment, like the Washington Post. So I don't know. I mean, clearly he's interested in this kind of stuff. There's business intelligence. There's, I mean, there was so much stuff. It was kind of hard to believe. So that's why I'm sure that's why they did the car, so that mainstream media and dummies like me, who don't really want to talk about lambda layers, have something to show off.
They may get some really interesting data from those cars too. So I wonder, these are things that are out there collecting location data and all sorts of things, and maybe mapping data. It won't be the same as like a full-size test car, but who knows? Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I'll have to look carefully at the license agreement. SageMaker Ground Truth, Amazon Forecast, Amazon Comprehend Medical. Actually, John Doerr, who's a big investor in Amazon, says he's pretty sure you're going to see Amazon Health Prime sometime this year, 2019. Amazon's clearly going into health, right? Because they already announced, Health, Prime Health.
Is this a health insurance company? Is that what he's talking about?
Maybe more than that. Maybe also a way to manage your health care. He says Amazon, Alphabet, and Apple all have a role in the future of healthcare. He was talking at the Forbes Healthcare Summit. He says Amazon's among the best positioned companies to take what it's learned from its customers and use it to their benefit. It would be for medical and health products. I guess maybe you'd pay a flat fee and then have access to, what about low-cost drugs, right?
Didn't Amazon buy, was it PillPack earlier this year?
Yes.
One of our sponsors, which is a drugstore, but it's an internet drugstore. So when you go online at PillPack, you bring your prescription, and then they send you. I actually did it. It's great. They send you a box with all of your medications or vitamins or whatever it is in pouches per day, per time of day and day. It's so cool. So yeah, they own that. Remember, they're doing a partnership with Berkshire Hathaway and was it John Hancock to do health insurance for their employees. But that's exactly what you do before you roll out a larger consumer effort. Yeah,
that was with J.P. Morgan Chase, I think.
That's who it was. That's who it was, J.P. Morgan. Remember that both Google and Microsoft tried some stuff with health and both abandoned it. Not sure if it was because of privacy issues, but I would guess. Would you trust Amazon more with your health information?
Trust it more than Facebook.
Yeah, I ain't doing Facebook health. That's for sure. I'm waiting for an email from Facebook. They said it would be really easy to return those portals. They said you have 30 days to return them. And then I went to the page where it tells you how to return them. And it just says, just contact us. No link, no email, nothing. Just contact us. You figure out how. And good luck.
For a social network, they win the award for the least sociable company, without question.
God. How do you contact? I don't know. I sent him an email. We'll see. Oy. Amazon Translate custom terminology. Greengrass ML inference engines. I mean, I have nothing to say about any of this stuff because it's all just,
I saw one of them had the word quantum in it. Are they using any quantum computing? There was a quantum ledger, I believe.
Well, that's got to be merely a mark. Yeah, quantum ledger database. It's just marketing. There is no quantum computing. And I just read an article from somebody fairly respectable in physics who says there's not going to, quantum computing is never going to happen, which will be a great relief to all the people with the public-private key pairs. QLDB, Quantum Ledger Database, is a fully managed ledger database that provides transparent, immutable, and cryptographically verifiable transaction log. Well, this sounds like blockchain.
It does.
Is this the blockchain thing? That's the blockchain thing. So it's got two buzzwords for the price of one.
That's right.
Quantum blockchain. Now how much would you pay? That sounds good. I'll take that. Anyway, I bought the car. I thought we'd have fun with it. And maybe I'll learn something about RL. Should we talk about Facebook? It's the gift that just keeps on giving. What a soap opera going on at Facebook. Now the latest, Facebook in Russia, UK seizes thousands of emails. This is a Bloomberg story by a guy named Nate Langson. What's the story?
Yeah, and my colleague Kitty Donaldson. Yeah. Okay, so Mark Zuckerberg, as I think everyone knows, has appeared in front of Congress. He's appeared in front of the European Parliament. And the consensus is that he got a fairly easy ride from both of those. There's another investigation going on into fake news in Britain, and that's being run by a cross-party committee called DCMS, Departure for Culture, Media and Sport. And it's run by a guy called Damian Collins. And Damian Collins is a very, very tough guy when it comes to the activities of Facebook, allegations of election meddling, all that kind of stuff. But Mark Zuckerberg has so far refused several times to appear in front of this committee. He sent other people. He sent Mike Schrepfer, the CTO. The other day he sent Julian King, his name was, to speak, but Zuckerberg will not appear.
It's a long flight.
Yeah, it's a very long flight, but they offered to do it via video link, and he wouldn't do that either.
Never mind.
So, yeah. So, he's just refusing point blank to do it. And they are just putting more and more and more and more pressure on him with every passing week, it seems.
Do you think he's afraid that he won't get the white glove treatment he got from the U.S. Congress?
100%.
Yeah.
Without question. Without question. I mean, if you look at some of the hearings, I mean, they are tough. I mean, they're practically yelling at them, really, really intense. Very entertaining as a reporter sitting there covering them as well, I have to say. But with this email thing, at the end of the day, this committee is trying to get to the bottom of fake news and what happened around Brexit ahead of the Brexit vote and obviously the 2016 presidential elections, which is still obviously very relevant to any country. And so there was an order placed for a gentleman who actually has a lawsuit against Facebook, who is in London on a business trip. And he had a lot of emails, and it was tipped off to somebody in this committee that he had a lot of emails. And so they sent a heavy, they send somebody around to his hotel room and demanded that he give them these thousands of emails.
What?
Because they believed, and it seems accurately so, that these emails contained a lot of internal discussion between Facebook engineers about the Russian interference, potential Russian interference.
Now, these emails were sealed by the court here in the United States.
Yes, and I've got it on pretty good measure that they are going to release them next week, potentially unredacted, in Britain, which would, I think, be contrary to what I think it's a Californian court that sealed them as part of this lawsuit, right?
That's right, San Mateo County Superior Court.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen maybe 4 or 5 of these emails, but I'm told that there are thousands of emails, and it's just been they're basically working.
And what do they say? What do the emails say?
Well, the ones that I've seen that I referred to in this story were originally from, I think, 2014, where a Facebook engineer had seen what looked like a huge number of API calls coming from Russian IP addresses. And the email chain that went through that I saw essentially tried to establish, are these legitimate API calls? Are these genuinely coming from Russia? Are these things we need to be worried about? And over the course of the email chain, you essentially see that these emails concluded, I should say, that the API requests were legitimate. They were actually coming from Pinterest's servers and were the result of a technical fault. And then the email chain moves on and moves on to other stuff.
Of course, it wasn't real.
Yeah. It wasn't real. But the fact of the matter is that there's still thousands of other emails that this gentleman has that now this parliamentary committee has seized, and we're sort of sitting on the edge of our seats just waiting to get hold of them, which, as I say, I believe will be this coming week.
Do you think there'll be a smoking gun in there? I mean, and what would a smoking gun reveal? That Facebook knew about Russian interference and did nothing?
Yes. That's what they want to find. Yeah, and it's too early to speculate because we haven't seen enough. We don't know enough about it. There's also, it's not for me to gossip about the way that these emails were discovered, but I would just encourage people to do a bit of Googling and look at some of the background to how these emails were discovered in the first place. But certainly that's what the committee that sees them is looking for. It's looking for a smoking gun that says Facebook knew about Russian meddling and Facebook did not do anything. And obviously Facebook vehemently denies all of this and has vehemently denied it up until as recently as this week. So it will continue to do so, I'm sure. But it's definitely a story that's going to keep on giving.
So I don't know the story of 643, which is the company that had the emails. They'd received them in discovery. Apparently they're suing Facebook for something.
Yeah, they made a tool, a Facebook app that allowed you to find photos of your friends in bikinis. It's really, it's highbrow stuff. So that's their
Where
background.
Can I get that, by the way? That's no, I'm sorry. I just no. And so he's suing, and then Facebook provided in legal discovery some emails, presumably relevant to the case. They were sealed by the court, but as you said, the founder of the company was in London on a business trip and accosted by a committee of UK lawmakers. This is a movie, man. Give us the emails. I won't give you the emails. Give us the email. He gave him the emails. Facebook's now saying we want sanctions because he violated his court order sealing the documents. That hearing, I think, is just happened on Friday.
Yeah.
Facebook's, but what would so do you think that these emails revealed in discovery would somehow have to do with Russian involvement, and why would they?
Well, I mean, that's basically that. All of this is to try and put pressure on getting Zuckerberg into a hearing.
So whether these are germane or not isn't really important.
No, I mean, certainly I think that they're going through it to seeing if they can find anything, because if there's even a shred of detail in there that allows them to put additional pressure on Zuckerberg, then they're going to use it. I mean, to give you an example of how heavy-handed they're being with this, while the parliamentary hearing was going on last week, this is the one where Facebook's privacy chief was being interviewed for several hours. These go on for hours, these hearings. It's ridiculous. The public relations team, on behalf of the committee, sent out a photograph, a professional photograph of a empty seat with Mark Zuckerberg's name on it, and the whole of the committee looking towards it, just to say he's not shown up again. And when I got that email, I was like, guys, seriously, this is such an obvious PR stunt. But I'm almost kind of glad they did, because it validates my theory that everything they're doing is to just put more and more and more public pressure and potentially embarrassment on Zuckerberg until he gets on a plane and comes here and answers some questions. And there are many people who agree with that. I mean, Christopher Wiley, the whistleblower behind it, I know him reasonably well these days. I speak to him quite often, and he's adamant that the main reason that Zuckerberg won't come to London is because he knows it's the only place he's going to get given a properly difficult time. and a hard time answering questions.
Wiley was the whistleblower who had worked for Cambridge Analytica and told everybody, oh, this is what they really were doing.
Yeah, exactly. He's the one that in March revealed all of this was happening. Yeah.
And there has been since then more and more evidence that Cambridge Analytica and Steve Bannon were involved in throwing the Brexit election.
Yeah, and that's been again like a massive reason for this committee trying. They want to get to the bottom of this. They want to find out the truth, because if there's belief that Brexit was unduly influenced by any kind of rigging or persuasion, then they all want to do something.
Unlike the presidential election, you could have a do-over, couldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, talking about doing a do-over, a second referendum in Britain right now is it's on all the front pages. There's a lot of calls for that to happen.
Interesting.
And it's a very, very controversial one because, for those of you who are interested, the people who are against this think that it's a punch in the face of democracy, that you don't do another vote.
Yeah, we didn't like the results, so we're going to do it again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the argument that I personally am a little more on the side of is that so much has come out since then in terms of either whether it's how people were advertised to as part of campaigning. We have, there are exceptionally strict rules that have been provably broken, but also the fact that we didn't even know what kind of a deal was on the table. There's a lot of people that think that you should at least have a vote for the deal that we now have or no deal. But it's not really a tech topic, so that shouldn't be on my soapbox.
Well, the tech topic, which I think I feel like there's a certain amount of finger pointing, both in the U.S. and the U.K., because a large number of people didn't like the result of the vote. And the finger pointing is at tech companies because they make great scapegoats. And I don't know anything about the U.K. situation, but here in the United States, it seems pretty clear to me that no matter what happened on Facebook and Twitter, the will of the people was reflected fairly accurately by this vote. That it wasn't a question of convincing people to vote against their best interests or do something they wouldn't have done otherwise. It certainly helped encourage people and gave people a chance to vent. But I don't know if you could say the vote was, or could you?
That was a pretty close election, though. Like, that's the thing. Yeah. It was so close, both, in the U.S. and same thing.
But it's always close. This is the point, is that it's close because it's close. There is a definite disagreement. There's two different populations in the United States, and they disagree. And they're fairly equal in size, and it's fairly close. And so it's easily, but basically it means it's a system that's close to tied. Yes, you're right. It could be thrown either way. But even if you say, well, it nudged the needle, the point is it's still close. I mean, it's not that different from half the people wanting this.
I don't see any problem like holding Facebook to task, certainly, like between what we're seeing with the Russian troll operation and this and everything happening. Like, clearly a lot of people were using these platforms in bad faith and figured out ways to like socially engineer a lot of that. And
I agree with you.
I think these platforms deserve to be criticized for not seeing.
And I agree with you on that. I think that a lot of it, though, comes from people who want a do-over. And I don't agree with that. I mean, if you want to go after them for these issues, fine, but not because it changed the result of the election, I guess is what I'm saying. I mean,
there are some very interesting things that have come out as a result of all this. There was a story that I wrote earlier this week, based off something that Christopher Wiley had said, that the preferences of people's fashion, and this was in the US, this was ahead of the presidential election, their fashion preferences, the brands that they showed an affinity towards.
This is a great article, by the way. I love it.
Thank you. Were a massive factor in determining whether somebody was more inclined towards the Republicans or the Democrats. Specifically, that if you wore Wrangler jeans, you're more likely to be persuadable to vote Republican. And if you were a shopper of Abercrombie and Fitch or Macy's, then you are more likely you could be persuaded in voting Democrat. And, it's amazing when you think about it. But the bottom line is that everybody has to make a choice about fashion. Like, nobody walks, well, some people walk out of the house naked, but most people have the decency to put some clothes on. which means they have to go into a shop to buy some clothes. They make that choice. They interact with those brands maybe online. Maybe they're shopping for Black Friday deals. That data is there on Facebook and can be used when, triangulated with other data points to pretty accurately reflect their political leaning.
So, Nate, just so you know, this is a Wrangler shirt, buddy.
You're in Houston. It's a given that you voted red. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's a red Wrangler shirt.
Presume nothing.
I believe in my article I may have said Wrangler jeans, so I'm slightly sidestepping that.
Okay.
Oh, so the shirt's okay. All right.
But this, by the way, this goes back more than many, many decades. Consumer preferences have always been tied to I remember 30 years ago somebody coming in from a company that did this kind of research well before the internet, and they said, you tell me your zip code, I can tell you what magazines you subscribe to, what kind of cars in your driveway. I know a lot about you because birds of a feather flock together. And this has always been, marketing people have always known this.
Yeah, this doesn't seem too surprising. Like after there was a story about what was it, Target knowing you're potentially pregnant based on like the trends of what you're buying, and that seemed like black magic. This is just like, Wrangler jeans. You can tell who wants those.
I bet if you like country music, you're more likely to vote Republican.
Exactly.
The issue, though, as Nate brought up, is can you then say, well, this person is influenceable? Can I nudge them in the direction I want them to go?
And that's basically been the job of PR for many years. I mean, you can go back to the chap Edward Bernays. A lot of people call him the father of PR. And he was he had a campaign to promote cigarettes. I think maybe Lucky Strike. I'm not sure, but it was something like that. And they were green. And essentially the way he did it is he manipulated fashion trends so that people liked a particular color of green because the color of green was the same as the cigarettes, and therefore the cigarette sales went up.
He was Sigmund Freud's nephew.
Was he really?
Oh, quite a character. Yeah, he claimed Uncle Siggy gave him a lot of ideas about the unconscious mind and how to influence it. He's the guy who did 4 out of 5 doctors. He was hired by the Pork Council because they wanted people to buy more bacon. So he went out and I doubt he interviewed anybody. Yeah, I doubt he interviewed anybody, but he said, I think he gave them a kind of a suspicious questionnaire. Do you think people should have a hearty breakfast? Oh, yes. 4 out of 5 doctors recommend a hearty breakfast, including bacon and eggs. And in fact, completely changed American diet. We didn't eat bacon for breakfast until then. He convinced women it was okay to smoke because he had suffragettes smoking Lucky Strikes in a parade in New York City. And he even came up with a name for Lucky Strikes, like Freedom Strikes, that like if you believe in the women's right to vote, you should smoke. And if you're a woman, it's okay. And completely introduced smoking for women in the United States. So yes, this is an old and long known principle. Nothing new here. And I'm sure every politician, and every political campaign has tried to do, sometimes less successfully than others, but has tried to do the same thing. Admittedly, Facebook, Twitter, social media give you you can weaponize these things. Because, for instance, you can do dark ads. Instead of putting an ad where everybody can see what you're trying to do, you can show these ads only to susceptible people, and no one knows what you're doing.
Yeah, and this is one of the areas where... Sorry, Dwight, go ahead.
I don't think, Facebook has put several things in place in an attempt to kind of fix this. And there was some indication that they had some success in the midterms in terms of preventing it. But when you look at kind of what they are doing and the scope of it, I think they just feel like they're lost. Like they have no idea how to really keep this from happening again. And I think, I don't necessarily feel very good about the 2020 election in the United States.
Well, 2018 went all right for the Democrats, right?
Well, but I don't think necessarily that there was the indications from what we saw in the stories writing about it was that there wasn't kind of the attempts that were made weren't on the same scale as they were, and maybe that's
why not
Facebook. Well, and it could be that also this is a distributed election. They focused on one thing in the 2016 election, and that was the presidential election. Yeah. And I think in 2018, it's a distributed election. There are so many people running, and I just don't think that it necessarily was the kind of thing where it would be easy to target just one thing.
And also, American politicians will ruin the election on their own, right? So there is that.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Just look at Georgia.
We don't need help. Okay.
I mean, so I suppose as a tech supporter, I should defend these tech companies and say, look, this stuff happens all the time. You can't blame the election on Facebook. Sure, stuff happened, but it's just because stuff also happened in magazines and newspapers across the country. These are the media that people consume. This is where, if you're going to try to exert influence, you will, and that's just because Facebook's part of the American conversation. They're no worse than anybody else.
I disagree. I disagree with that. Yeah. I think if you look, it's Marshall McLuhan. Social media is a hot medium. It's very personal, it's very intimate, and it's very easy to target. It's very difficult to target, a major newspaper. Everybody sees that. But as you said, you could weaponize it in social media, and it's very personal. It's on your phone, it's on your computer. You see it at work. You see it all the time. Your friends share it. It's a much hotter medium. I think it's much more influential.
Well, yeah, and we talk about like less tech savvy users not being able to determine like when a fake, malware call or something is coming in. This stuff can be weaponized in many ways. We're hearing about what's happening in India with WhatsApp, and the potential of like somebody forwarding a fake message to their groups of friends can lead to a mob of people killing somebody.
It's been terrible.
Like that's insane.
Yeah,
and that's pure messaging, and I would put a lot of blame on the technology platform for at least not doing something to help maybe prevent that sort of usage.
So in the 60s, particularly President Kennedy, and then later Nixon, I'm hearing myself back. I'm also hearing a tone. I'm not sure what that's coming from. Nixon used brought ad men into the election for the very first time, used television effectively, and you could probably make the case in 1960, I think some have, that people who watched the Kennedy-Nixon debates thought Kennedy won. People who listened to them on the radio thought Nixon won. Television had a huge impact, but there weren't congressional hearings, or maybe there were. I don't think there were congressional hearings calling television to task because it gives politicians new ways to sway American voters. It's just the nature of technology.
Well, I think if you love technology, there's a problem. And just if you love your country, you want to fix that problem. I think that those of us who are boosters of technology know we've got to right this ship, or it is going to come down on our heads with maybe some really onerous regulation that does more than just what it needs to do. Because let's face it, our politicians don't understand it. They don't. I think they're now beginning to understand the implications and the power of it, but I don't think they really understand how it works. And I think that, as I said, one of the things I'm really happy about with this new crop of Democratic House members is that a lot of them are younger, and a lot of them by nature are going to understand tech more than their predecessors.
Mm-hmm. Well spoken. Yeah. I'm just I'm playing devil's advocate, but I think it's fair to get that other point of view in.
I mean, this underscores part of the problem with something like GDPR that we were talking about earlier, which is that often things like that are written with good intentions. I think GDPR was written with very good intentions, but it actually misses a huge part of what makes some of these platforms so powerful. And there's a hypothetical example that I like to use to illustrate this, which is if you are an individual and you have a hereditary medical condition, let's say, and it's something that you post about on social media, maybe you list it on Facebook for whatever reason, you do that. But you believe your data is to be completely private and secret. Let's say you then have a brother who is directly related to you, who doesn't list anything about that medical condition at all. It's theoretically possible that that brother could be targeted by whatever kind of messaging, because an advertiser or a platform knows that a direct blood relative has a hereditary health condition, and therefore it's highly likely, or certainly possible, that that relative may also have a condition, or certainly may pay more attention to adverts about that condition. And that's not something that that data about that brother, that other person, is not really covered in a lot of the data protection systems that we've seen discussed, and it's not something that's very easy to explain to lawmakers who are trying to put these rules together. And that's why I think, as was said, a newer generation, a younger generation, hopefully will make technology kind of front of mind in all of their policy making, rather than an afterthought.
So that's interesting. You think GDPR doesn't go far enough?
I think it has. I think it exists for very, the intention behind it was very good, but I think it's probably going to be ineffectual in the long run in fundamentally changing a lot of the stuff that it wants to change. Yeah.
And in a way, isn't it up to us? I mean, we, not Congress, not Facebook, but us. If we stopped using it, if we encourage people to stop using it, can't that work as well?
I think we've reached a point where we're a little too big to fail, right? Like Facebook, billions of users, Google, billions of users. Like you can't even boycott them because they're so big. But yeah, go ahead, Nate.
It's like people don't, if there's a car accident, people don't say don't drive cars. They say make safer cars.
Good point. All right.
And I think that's what needs to be done.
Fix it. Don't abandon it.
Fix it.
Yeah.
If you love it, fix it.
If you love it, I don't love it. That's why I left it.
Leo, I see you pop in there every now and then. You kind of jump in.
You know why? Because to get the Facebook portal, I had to reactivate my account. I don't delete these accounts because I planted my flag and I don't want anybody else to take it. So I can't delete the account. I don't want somebody to take over my Facebook account or Twitter account or Instagram account or Tumblr account or et cetera, et cetera. So what I do is deactivate. But in order to buy the portal, I had to reactivate. And then, by the way, when I got the portal, I found out I can deactivate. But even if you deactivate, Facebook Messenger does not deactivate. Oh. So the portal still worked. But I still don't want the portal because I don't want to have anything to do with Facebook. So I think I'm deactivated now. Oh, I know I am. Because my birthday was Thursday, and the last thing in the world I wanted was 800 Facebook wishes, birthday wishes.
They at least organize that better now. Yeah.
Is it better now? I don't know. I just didn't want to have to respond. I feel guilty if I don't respond. I feel put upon if I do. It's a no-win. So
I saw a notification on your birthday on LinkedIn, so you need to shut that down.
Oh, crap.
Oh.
Keep pulling me in. Yeah. So you could tell if I've come or gone from Facebook.
So I have a plugin in the browser for Facebook called Social Fixer, and it gives me a notification when somebody unfollows. And what's interesting is I see a lot of people turn their Facebook off for like a few days and then come back. And they do that over and over. And I don't know if it's because they're trying to get away from a stalker or somebody, who's abusing them. But I see that turn on and off fairly frequently for certain people. And the thing with you and the portal, that makes a lot of sense. That matches that behavior.
So it looks like I'm unfollowing you when I leave?
Yes, it says Leo Laporte is no longer on your friends list, is what it says.
Oh my God! I apologize to all the people who think I'm not. I've unfollowed them.
Who use Social Fixer? If you don't use this, you don't see that.
Wow.
That sounds like an anxiety nightmare. That app. Yeah.
Well, it also hides ads. It hides ads in Facebook and allows you to block keywords. So, like, if I don't want to see anything involving, say, the president, I can block on his name, and I don't see any of those stories.
So it's interesting because when I did rejoin, I went to look at my Facebook feed just to see, and it was so boring and horrible and made me so sad that it just reaffirmed, because once you stop using it, you forget, and you see it and you go, wow, why was I?
You can't even find anything on that menu.
Why was I addicted to this? This is not interesting.
But I think this conversation about Facebook and the elections and the responsibility, we've reached a new point for all these tech companies where I think we're looking more at the human impact of them. And this is a new phase of maybe how we're looking at tech because it's so deeply embedded in our lives. But we're seeing this on all fronts, right? Like Amazon and labor practices and what their shipping factories are like. Even around Red Dead Redemption 2, a game which a ton of people are super excited for. There's been a lot of great coverage around the labor practices at Rockstar and kind of what they force workers to do to make something that big and that detailed. So, I love tech, but I want to hold all these companies to account, and they're having more of an impact on our lives in ways that we can't even control. So we really have to like step up and make sure they're criticized properly.
Well, you say that because you're a good person, but most people will say, "Oh, that's a bummer," and still use the phone. You play the game.
We can't stop them from using it. Like, that's the thing. So the best we could do is, like, as maybe the educated users, like, kind of highlight these issues and bring it to tasks, you know, with governments, in other ways as well.
Interesting. Well, Dwight, if you ever get that extension that shows me in bikini pictures, I just want to warn you, there are a few, and they're not pretty. So
all right,
be careful.
I'm on it.
Be careful. Our show today brought to you. I love this panel. We're going to have you all back. I mean, you're all great. I've always loved all three of you. But Nate, it's great to have you on again after all these years. Nate Langston is tech editor, European tech editor at Bloomberg, and he also is consumer tech editor. And it's great to have him on. He's on Twitter at Nate, Lanxon. Devendra Hardawar, senior editor at Engadget at Devendra, if you want to congratulate him on his new member of his family. And Dwight Silverman, you'll find him at the Tech Burger at the Houston Chronicle at D. Silverman on the Twitter. Time for an Audible ad. I don't get enough of these because I have so many Audible recommendations. I could do Audible ads all day. I love Audible. Started using Audible in the year 2000, almost 20 years ago, because I had a long commute and I was going to kill somebody or myself at some point, drive off the road by accident, just because it was deathly boring. 2 or 3 hours a day, maybe sometimes 4 if traffic was really bad, doing nothing, listening to pop music. Then I found Audible. Now that time is well spent. In fact, I kind of miss my commute. I don't commute anymore, but I do listen to Audible whenever I'm in the car, whenever I'm doing the dishes, walking the dog. I have the Amazon Echoes set up so that they're all playing my latest book. I put them on Sonos now. You can listen on Sonos. It's great. In fact, I make the whole house play my audio book as I'm cleaning. It is so much fun. There's so many great books at Audible. If you've heard me talk about it and you're thinking, I ought to get an Audible book, we've got 3 months of Audible, just $6.95 a month. If you go to audible.com/twit. Now that is a holiday deal. Or text TWIT to 500-500. Audible has the largest selection of audiobooks on the planet. Great stuff. And now the new Audible Originals. Have you guys done these Audible Originals? These are really awesome. Every month, there'll be a new set, 6 originals. I think it's 6 every month. We were talking about Broadway earlier. That Carey Mulligan one-woman show that's off Broadway, Boys and Girls, very popular. You can get that on Audible and listen to it. That's how I know about it. I love it. It was awesome. I'm listening to a Stephen Fry book right now, part of the my Audible Originals. He's taking Victorian personal journals and reading them. And man, those Victorians had quite an, it's called Victorian Secrets, and it's fantastic. Stephen Fry is the perfect guy to narrate that. Also an Audible original. Audible's recording so much material now that they're giving you great stuff. I just got this one too. It's called Have a Nice Day. It features Annette Bening, Dick Cavett, Billy Crystal, Rachel Dratch, Christopher Jackson, Kevin Kline, a full cast. Is it a play? It's a live multicast script. It was a reading captured over 2 evenings in October at Audible's Minetta Lane Theater in Greenwich Village. And you can listen to it. What fun! So add this to all the books that you're going to get. This is a great deal. I listen to Audible all the time, not only for escape, because I like a lot of science fiction on Audible and a lot of escapist novels and stuff like that, but also to learn. I just got the book that everybody in Silicon Valley is listening to from Yuval Noah Harari. His books, by the way, if you've not read any Harari, his books are all great. He's the one who wrote Sapiens and Homo Deus. His newest is 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. People are talking about this in Silicon Valley like crazy. I mean, this is the stuff we're talking about. And Harari is a deep thinker. How do computers and robots change the meaning of being human? How do we deal with the epidemic of fake news? Are nations and religions still relevant? What should we teach our children? 21 Lessons for 21st Century, just one of many books on Audible. Learn, play, enjoy. Oh, there's a little Game of Thrones in there, some George R.R. Martin. These are the top, what are the top 20 books right now? Sleep Better. That's no surprise. That's a top 20 book. Go to audible.com/twit. Get 3 months of Audible, just $6.95 a month. Or text TWIT to 500-500 to get a link. Exclusive audio fitness programs, audiobooks, Audible originals. It's more than just books. It's the best kind of audio programming. And yes, I binge Audible. I admit it. In fact, sometimes Lisa and I, because we always have a book the two of us are listening to. So she has her subscription, I have mine. But there's always a book that, and by the way, you can share your subscriptions, which we do. So if I go to my library, it includes books from her library and books from my library, which is awesome. But we like to have a book the two of us are listening to right now. It's Stephen King's The Outsider. And often, instead, we'll say, well, should we watch a show? Or, let's just get in bed and listen to Audible. And that is a really nice, cozy thing to do. We put a fire in the fireplace, pop some popcorn, and listen to a great book together. Audible.com/twit. It's a good thing to do if you have a newborn as well. Put on the headphones while you're rocking Sophia in the middle of the night.
That's how I do all my podcasts now, but yeah, also some Audible.
It's good for podcasts.
Yep.
But I like Audible. Let's see. Speaking of babysitters, Facebook and Twitter are cracking down on AI babysitter rating service. You didn't use this. Facebook and Twitter say the rating service called Predictim analyzed babysitters' online histories, including Facebook and Twitter, offered ratings of whether they're at risk of drug abuse, bullying, or just having a bad attitude. This breaks both social networks' rules on user surveillance and data privacy, but I think is a brilliant use of data scraping. That's better than a background check. This one has a bad attitude. We know because we saw her Facebook feed.
So that reminds me of the story out of China, where China says it's going to start doing social ratings of all of its citizens.
Yeah.
And then it sounds like that's the same type of data scraping that they're using here, only just for babysitters.
Well, at least it's limited, right?
That's right. That's right.
Beijing is about to launch this social credit system. The capital of China. It's been in use in South China for some time. I think Shenzhen and others. And they had some stats. Let me see if I can find the story. They had some stats that just were mind-boggling about the number of people who've been kept from traveling, kept from buying stuff, because they had a bad social credit score. Mm. Is this coming to America, do you think?
I wouldn't be surprised if some public relations companies don't do this with journalists. That they have some kind of automated system that looks, that scrapes and looks at all of our social feeds.
Oh, well, you guys
and
deserve
then kind
it.
of do flags.
Yeah.
Yes, with pride.
Dvorak always swore that, and actually it's true that there was a blacklist, that Microsoft had a blacklist. He says that I remember he says I walked by an office of somebody's at Microsoft and my name was on the list. And Apple's long been rumored to have some sort of punishment and reward system. Gizmodo for sure was on their list. After the stolen iPhone incident, although Gizmodo's going to those events now. I'm still not. And I never stole an iPhone. I don't know why. What have I done? Glad to be on that list. According to the Beijing government, the city will have a blacklist that will be made available for market access, public services, travel, and employment. Residents with bad social credit scores will be limited in terms of movement and accessing services in the city. Those with good credit scores will have easy access to services in the city. Here's the Bloomberg story. This is going to go into place on 22 million citizens in Beijing by the end of 2020. They announced it. They posted the plan online. The problem is that there's probably a good group of people who say, that's good. Everybody will behave better in public. That's a good thing.
Uh-huh.
And I imagine there are a few people in the United States who wouldn't mind that either. And it's certainly for tech journalists, it's a good thing.
What's that Black Mirror episode?
Yes,
I forget the name of it. Right. It was in the third season. Yeah.
Yep. Your score would go up and down. Mm-hmm. So Ryan Gallagher added again in The Intercept. He's got great sources inside of Google. Project Dragonfly, that was the project to build a search engine for China, a Google-branded search engine that would censor categories of information about human rights, democracy, peaceful protest. My guess is his source is Jonathan Zunger, who was at Google for many years, 14 years, left, but has been very outspoken about this. He's quoted as saying he was present at some of the early meetings about Dragonfly. He says he pointed out to executives managing the product, Chinese people could be at risk of interrogation or detention if they were found to have used Google to seek out information banned by the government. Scott Beaumont, head of operations in China and one of the key architects at Dragonfly, quote, did not view Zunger's concern as significant enough to merit a change of course, according to 4 people who worked on the project. They shut out members of the company's security and privacy team from meetings about Dragonfly and tried to sideline a privacy review of the plan that sought to address potential human rights abuses. Zunger is the only one of the 4 who spoke on the record. But this is credible. It's a little disappointing. So, you know, even American companies can be complicit in this scheme, this social credit scheme. Apple was in the Supreme Court this week. We talked a little bit about this throughout the week. It is kind of an interesting suit. The Supreme Court justices are going to only be ruling on standing. The lawsuit, a class action lawsuit, accuses Apple of breaking federal antitrust laws by monopolizing the market for iPhone software applications, which causes customers to overpay. Apple says, no, we're just an agent. We're just, we don't actually sell direct to the customers. The companies that make the software do. So there's no standing to sue us. Go sue that company, not us. The Supreme Court will have to decide whether the lawsuit can go ahead. So they're not deciding on whether Apple's a monopoly, but merely on whether the lawsuit can go ahead. It's all based on a 1977 precedent called Illinois Brick. I don't know if I want to go on and on about this. I've become an expert in all of this over the last few days. Neil Gorsuch wondered whether Illinois Brick was still valid in a modern marketplace. Justice Roberts said he agreed with Apple's position. He expressed concern that for a single price increase, Apple could be held liable by both consumers and app developers. He thought that wasn't right.
I think Gorsuch nails it on the head. I think that this is a different beast than what Illinois Brick was.
Illinois Brick was a suit that the state of Illinois, brought against a consortium of brick manufacturers, saying that they had colluded to keep prices high. But the Supreme Court said, well, you don't have standing, state of Illinois, because you're not buying the bricks, and threw the case out. And that's been precedent for some time, ever since.
Well, Apple doesn't set the individual price for each app. Apple has tiers, and the developer picks the tier. So, you know, to say that Apple keeps prices high is not necessarily true, because the developer could charge 99 cents and the developer could charge $8.99 or whatever they want to charge. But it just has to be at that tiered step. And that, to me, that's not a monopoly.
The class action suit asserted that prices were high because developers would pass along Apple's 30% cut.
This seems strange, rather than complaining that Apple is selling its own products on the marketplace, right? And their pricing kind of determines, maybe what the competitors would do. I feel like that's a little more valid. This one seems confusing.
Yeah. And Ben Thompson, as usual, a great article on Stratechery, why Apple is right in this case, as you said too, Dwight. However, there is a good point to be made about Apple's App Store monopoly. It is, in fact, the only way you could put an app on iOS. Mm-hmm. Apple's contention is this keeps iOS secure. But Ben says Apple is an abusive monopoly. And I'll tell you where it really hurts is companies like Netflix and Amazon or even Audible, who on Android, you could buy an Audible book or through the Audible app. On the Kindle, you can buy a Kindle book through the Kindle app. They don't do it on Apple's App Store, not because Apple forbids it, but because Apple would take 30% of the transaction, even though they add no value.
That's Amazon's choice, though. That's Amazon's choice to make the consumer experience worse. So
because they want to make 30% more.
They want to make as much money as they can, but it's weird to me that Amazon is a company, their first reaction to all this, the same thing happened to Comixology when that thing even had an app. There's not even an app anymore for that. But yeah, you couldn't buy those digital comics through iOS, and now there's not even an app. It's all through the web.
Right.
There's an argument to be made there.
The difference is, so Fortnite is a good example because Epic Games had to sell it through the App Store on iOS, and as a result, Apple made millions of dollars on in-app purchases because the game is free, right? But all of those in-app purchases went to, Apple made literally, I can't remember what it was, $115 million in 3 months for Fortnite. That means Apple made more than $30 million. So when Epic came to Android, they elected, because they don't have to sell through the Play Store, they elected to offer it as a direct download, but in order for consumers to get it, they have to turn off a setting in settings, download it, turn it back on for their protection. Fortnite makes more money that way. You could argue that's a worse experience for consumers.
Yeah, that's more friction. But like Fortnite, by the time Fortnite hit Android, it was enough of a phenomenon that people will jump through fire to get that game on their phone. So, it kind of works out there. But we were just talking about, I mentioned the Microsoft antitrust thing. What if Microsoft was locking off, apps that were running on Windows in the 90s and saying, we're the sole provider. We can approve what's coming on there. I guess our definition of how we determine a monopoly and how we look at these tech companies has changed a lot in 2 decades.
Well, it's interesting because Microsoft does offer a version of Windows that you can only get software from the Play Store, from the Microsoft
from their store.
Yeah.
Well, it's a mode.
10S.
It's a mode of Windows 10.
That's why they call it a mode now, not a version. Yeah. It's indistinguishable. That's a distinction without difference, or a difference without distinction. But I do note that everybody who buys a Windows 10S computer immediately turns Windows 10S off so they can download Chrome. Otherwise, there's no Chrome.
But I think a part of that is also for education, because it's a lot easier for schools to deploy those machines knowing that they are out of the box, perhaps either slightly more secure or it's just less distracting for kids. I think that might be part of that reason.
Yeah. That kicked off with the Surface laptop, and I think that was like they were going to make that a big school push, and then they realized it's a terrible idea because yes, everybody was turning on going back to Windows 10 Pro. So now 10S is just like a thing that's on some devices, and you could flip it to Pro easily if you need to.
But even today, if Microsoft had made a Windows machine that only supported 10S, I think there'd be some squawking.
I think that was called the Surface RT. Look how well that did.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, right.
I have one
Surface
of those
RT
somewhere.
Well, and the Mac App Store allows you're able to download things on the Mac both from the web as well as there. But you notice in the newer versions of Mac OS, when you download something from the web, it basically says, you downloaded something from the web. Do you really trust this developer?
Yep.
And if the developer isn't on the approved list, you have to go into the security settings and basically say, yeah, even though these guys, you don't know anything about them, I'm going to go ahead and approve this. So they make you jump for it on the Mac, even though you can get it if you can get almost anything you want on the Mac App Store, but the prices there are kind of interesting too.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you did this on desktop computing, people would be very upset. But something about mobile computing, it doesn't bother people.
Well, I think the argument that it's secure is a good one, and I think you see what goes on with Android is kind of the proof of that.
And you've got things on mobile that you don't typically have in the same way on on desktop, and chiefly with things like being able to send an SMS in order to pay for something.
Right.
You have your card details on the device in some form. Like there's a lot of stuff that historically hasn't been as integrated on desktop as it has been on mobile. And I think a lot of it goes back to an earlier conversation we were having around the scammers and people calling up. Like that's something that just doesn't really happen on mobile devices. You don't get people calling up saying, hey, your phone's infected. You must call this number and give us your details.
Give them time.
Well, there's the SIM card hijacking thing now. Like the SIM hijacking is the other form of that.
That's awful.
So,
that's awful.
Yeah.
I think, though, that's a good point. That people understand that this smartphone is uniquely vulnerable and contains a lot of really valuable information. So they're willing to put up with some lack of convenience for better security.
Well, we also came out of the environment where you couldn't do anything on your phone, right? Like the old Nokia, the old, like where the apps were terrible, everything was terrible.
So the fact we can do anything at all is amazing.
Yeah, we're grateful. We're grateful for anything.
I did worry when Apple first came out with Gatekeeper, that technology you're talking about, Devindra, that they would lock the Mac down, that at some point they would do exactly the same thing. And they may still, who knows? They are slowly working that way.
Yeah, like iPad Pro is kind of getting Mac-ish, and now the new MacBook Air looks fundamentally useless. I don't know, as a computer. So are they trying to it seems like they want iOS to be more and more of their bigger platform moving forward.
I bought the new iPad Pro, the 11-inch, and as much as I love it, it's just I'm trying to think of a useful analogy here, but if you watch someone who's got a really I don't know, some problem with their face, and you watch it in a very blurry image, it's not so noticeable, and then you blow that up into 4K, and it's like, if you're that person, you're like, oh man, don't watch that, I look terrible in that picture. I sort of feel that that's iOS right now, is that the iPad Pro is so capable, is so powerful, there's so much, almost perfect, and iOS is the single thing that's holding it back. That and file access to USB devices through USB-C, but that's another story for another day.
That's the universal review of the iPad Pro, and I love it. I have a 12.9-inch, is that it's tomorrow's hardware running yesterday's software.
Yeah, definitely. My view is definitely not unique, but I agree with every review I've seen that's highlighted that.
Yeah. Too bad, because that is the most amazing computer. I mean, it's ready for something. I don't know what. But Google's done kind of the same thing, the Pixelbook and now the Pixel Slate. Same exact problem, where you have amazing hardware running buggy, inappropriate software.
And Google has been failing at making computers for a while, I'd say. Like, I think the Chromebook thing, like cheap Chromebooks, that's great. That's a great idea. The Pixel, like when they launched that, I was never a fan. And yeah, the Pixelbook now seems like a nice Chromebook. I don't know why it's so expensive. I'm just sad to see Apple kind of following on a similar path. And meanwhile, Microsoft is releasing good mobile hardware, and I'm totally baffled as to this reality we're living in now. It's
well,
so
you
weird.
did see that Microsoft is now worth more than Apple.
Yep.
Partly because Microsoft's gone up, and mostly because Apple's gone down a lot. They're now down below $850 million market worth. What's really cool, though, is look at the smiling Satya Nadella, the new CEO of Microsoft. Its market value has tripled under Nadella.
No wonder he's smiling.
Yeah. He did all. There haven't been that many cases where a tech company reinvented itself and successfully navigated these very challenging waters, the innovator's dilemma and all that. I don't even know if I can think of an example. There's far more examples
Apple went
like
through in the 90s.
Apple, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And IBM had kind of a brief flourishing in the 2000s after it refound itself and then didn't keep up after that. So there have been a couple of them like that. But one of the interesting things about Microsoft is that essentially it kind of went back to its roots as a business company. It pulled back a little bit, except for things like Xbox. It pulled back from moving in such a consumer-centric direction that it had, and it really looked at what businesses wanted and began to provide that. Although I think the roadmap it followed had previously been paved by Amazon with its cloud services.
Yeah, giving up on phones like almost immediately was probably the smartest thing Nadella did. And honestly, I'm surprised Microsoft kept going with the Surface lineup, because those first couple devices were not great. They were so terrible. I think one line from my Surface RT review was, I wanted to throw this thing out of the window. But now I look at everything they're doing, at least their hardware design. Leo, you're using the Surface Studio. Like, these are the things we kind of expected from Apple a decade ago. So just so weird. So we're such a strange world we're in now.
Good. If it were too predictable, it wouldn't be fun doing this job. All right, I left the biggest story of the year, maybe the decade, for last. So we're going to take a break, and then I will give you that in a moment and a few bits and pieces left over. But first, a word from our sponsor, Rocket Mortgage. If it's time to buy a new home, unless you are, I almost said Nelson Rockefeller, which would have dated me. Unless you are Bill Gates, and even that dates me a little bit. Unless you're PewDiePie, you're getting a loan, right? You're going to be going out. So that's the hip new one. You're going to go out, you're going to get a loan, and if you're going to get a loan, don't go to the big bank. Believe me, we did that 5 years ago. That was a nightmare. First of all, you got to go to the big bank. Got to dress up, fill out a long application, and then your homework, your troubles begin. You've got to find pay stubs from previous jobs, bank statements. You got to find a fax machine and fax that to them, and it takes a long, long time. Let's get in the 21st century with Quicken Loans, the #1 mortgage lender in the country. They've been a #1 now in volume for a year, but that's because for 9 years they've been #1 in customer satisfaction, according to J.D. Power. 9 years. When you focus on customers, eventually you become the biggest, the best. That one of the ways they did this with Rocket Mortgage, we've talked about this before, an entirely online mortgage approval process that takes minutes, not days, and requires a trip to nowhere. You could actually do it at an open house on your smartphone. It's an entirely online process. Step 1, you answer a few simple questions, no big long application. They check your credit, and you get pre-qualified approval. They tell you what loans you qualify for. They've got great rates. You choose the rate, you choose the term, you choose the down payment, and you're in. That's the part 1 of the power buying process. But then the next part starts. Over the next 24 hours, in most cases without any intervention on your part, just kind of automatically, they'll verify income, assets, and credit, and they'll give you verified approval. Now, that is big. That means you have the strength of a cash buyer. You're good for the money. When you go to make an offer on a house, you've got a letter that says, yep, we approve them. They've got the loan. There's no contingency. That's huge, especially, I don't know what it's like in some other parts of the country, but here in the California area, when you're putting an offer on a house, there are 5 other people bidding for that house too. And if there's somebody with cash, they're going to go way ahead of you unless you've got this letter that says there's no contingency, they got the loan. And once you're verified, step 3 kicks in, and this is fantastic because interest rates have started to tick up, and that adds some anxiety. If an interest rate goes up while you're shopping, that house could cost tens of thousands of dollars more unless you're using Rocket Mortgage. Then you've got Rate Shield approval. All new, exclusive. They lock up your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Once you get that verified approval, you qualify. If rates go up, your rate does not. It stays the same. If rates go down, your rate drops. So that's nice too. Either way, you win. It's kind of like exactly what you'd expect from a customer-focused lender. America's #1 mortgage lender, Rocket Mortgage and Quicken Loans. Get started today. Go to rocketmortgage.com/twit2. rocketmortgage.com/twit and the number 2. Rate Shield approval is only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records, equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, and MLSConsumerAccess.org, number 3030. Just remember this, rocketmortgage.com/twit2. And we thank Rocket Mortgage. They've been a great sponsor all year long. Just really appreciate their support. MIT Technology Review had the story. There's now maybe been some doubt cast on it, but I think if this is true, this is the story of the decade. The first example of CRISPR being used to edit in vitro an embryo. The gene they removed was CCR5. The idea was to give the baby resistance to HIV, smallpox, and cholera, And according to the doctor who led this team, He Jiankui, 2 babies, twin girls, were born with this edited gene data. If this is true, this is a watershed moment, I think, in human history. Devendra, you agree? You just had a baby. Would you, if you could, would you have edited that gene out?
It depends. Would I have done it today? Probably not, because we don't know much about this technology, right? We're using CRISPR kind of like, a sledgehammer in certain ways. We don't know how various bits of DNA interact. There's a lot we just don't know. In 20 or 30 years, when we kind of, know exactly how everything's going, maybe,
Your granddaughter.
Perhaps.
It is, I should point out, illegal in every country of the world. China, maybe not, because it's not a law that forbids it. It's a administrative recommendation. So it's unclear whether it has the effect of law.
And there is also has roiled the research community. There, one of the people who was providing assistance, essentially consulting with the team, was out of Rice University here in Houston.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So so Rice is looking into that as well. And so there was a lot of input into this process, and I think that there's going to be a lot of soul searching in the research community as a result of this.
When this was all presented at a big conference, genetics conference this week, and at the end of the conference, the organizers said, "Under no civilized nation thinks this is a good idea. If this did happen, it's probably illegal and it's certainly unethical." I don't know about that, but the doctor, Dr. He, posted a video to YouTube in 2017 describing preliminary experiments on mice, monkeys, and more than 300 human embryos. The concern you have, Devendra, and others have, is that CRISPR isn't perfect and that it can introduce perhaps accidental mutations. Remember when we first cloned a sheep, Dolly, she died in a very quick period, like a couple of years, because it turns out the cloning didn't reset the clock. And so she was old when she was born. He says, in our tests, few or no unwanted changes in the test embryos. So they went ahead and did it. He says, we got to be slow and cautious. Even a single case of failure could kill off the entire field. I don't think so. I think the gene editing is going to happen. It may be illegal. It may be black market, but there's people who will pay to have smarter children, faster children, healthier children, better looking children.
We have seen fields like this kind of take a freeze. I think that happened to AI in the 80s, and people talk about that quite a bit too. So, so if something goes wrong, it could stall research. It could slow things down. And, that's not necessarily something I want either. I just want us to be really careful about this because, we're going to build the world of designer babies. We're already going to have to deal with the fact that it's mainly going to be rich and affluent people who are going to be able to afford this and create a whole new generation of humans who have a clear advantage over everybody else. There are going to be so many other problems we're going to have to deal with first, aside from getting the DNA wrong.
Still, I think it's historic if it's true, if he really did it.
True. Yeah.
And I don't see any evidence that it's not true. Wow.
I wish it were something we could celebrate in a way, because the unethical marker comes where, we don't know what's going to happen to these kids in 5 or 10 or 20 years. And is it ethical for her parents to decide that? Is it ethical for the doctor to kind of be involved in doing something like this? That's the big question.
We should mention that on Thursday, the Chinese government halted work by this team, saying we don't support this. His experiment, according to the Chinese government, crossed the line of morality and ethics adhered to by the academic community and was shocking and unacceptable. That's from Xu Nanping, the Vice Minister of Science and Technology in China. So,
well, we have to be careful because, we're dealing with so many things now that could, I don't know, at an extreme, wipe out humanity. You know, like a crazy gene mutation could lead to who knows what. So as we dabble in these world-ending things and civilization-ending things, we should probably take a breath and, you know, just make sure we know what we're doing.
Oh, come on. Full speed ahead.
Yeah. There's a great new podcast.
What could possibly go wrong?
I've seen Godzilla. I know what can happen.
Oh, that's from nuclear waste.
I have one thought on this, which is, you know, we talk a lot, and Elon Musk talks a lot about going to Mars, and, you know, the late Stephen Hawking talked about how the future of humanity would be in the hands of people who were able to leave Earth and colonize other planets and solar systems. My view is that if this can be perfected, maybe there's a way to breed. It sounds horrible, doesn't it? But to, you know, for children to be born in a way that genetically makes them more suitable for life outside of Earth. And that's the side of this that I find extremely exciting. We'll never get to see it in our lifetimes, I don't think. But that, I imagine, I could see happening in, you know, 100, 150 years' time.
That's a dystopian novel right there.
That's The Expanse. I think that's written quite well into the world of The Expanse, which is a fantastic book and TV series. Yeah. Right.
Well, you said it, and before the show began, that you had a child with some nervousness about the world that Sophia was going to be born into. My kids are
terrifying.
Grown. My kids are grown, but I also feel like, and maybe that's how every generation feels about the future, but I do feel like we're striding full speed ahead into a very different world, and boy,
it's. I would say it's particularly terrifying just because you see the state of politics and the state of like social movements today, the rise of fascism and everything. But I've been listening to a great podcast called The End of the World podcast from the Stuff You Should Know folks, and it is all about these existential threats that we're going through. And I think the key takeaway is we're living at a time where multiple things we're doing could be the end of humanity. You know, it could be gene editing, it could be AI, it could be who knows what. Climate change is also something we're dealing with and not stopping. So it's like all these
nuclear war is still out
there. Nuclear war still a thing.
Still out there.
Yeah, we all grew up with the threat of nuclear war, of global annihilation under a Soviet Union that was armed to the teeth, and in the United States it was armed to the teeth and could at any moment, you know, end the world. We grew up under that.
Yeah,
but now there's multiple possibilities.
It's coming from every direction. It's great.
And I'm actually less worried about the end of mankind. If that's what happens, probably it's a good thing. But I am more worried about creating a world that is just inhospitable, inhumane, grim, gloomy, depressing, dystopian, and that our kids and our grandkids will grow up in that. That's really sad. That's a fate. That's a fate worse than annihilation.
I can throw a little. I'm gonna throw a little positive light on this.
Please do. Please. You got me so excited. Yes.
Okay, so the thing that I've noticed because of Brexit, and I'm sorry to bring up Brexit again, but I have a very good reason to do so, is that I have never in my life seen so many young people motivated by politics. So many people care so passionately, and you know, if this all goes through and we do end up leaving Europe, we are going to have at least right now 2 generations of people living who almost certainly didn't want it. On the whole, you know, it's known that the older generations favored to leave and younger favored to stay. And they are the people that are going to have the power and the influence and the motivation and the drive to do something about it and to make the future better. And I think that as long as there are people that fear that things will get worse and are motivated to try and prevent things, then we're going to have people that are going to be trying to make the world a better place. And that's the thought that keeps me very hopeful. I'd be far more worried if things like Brexit was taking place and nobody seemed to care and there were no protests, because that would mean we've given up and then we really are all screwed.
I'm feeling the same thing here in the U.S. So yeah, that's a little bit of sunshine in the clouds here.
Yeah, it takes tough times to get people off their ass.
Yeah,
now's the time.
Well, and also And also you have the pendulum effect. Ronald Reagan was kind of notoriously known socially as kind of a hard ass, but he was followed by his vice president, George H.W. Bush, who just died, who was a champion of compassionate conservatism, and then that you moved into the Clinton era, and so I think that what we're seeing now, hopefully there is a pendulum and we will swing back. At least that's kind of where I cast my hope.
So let's end on a bright note then. That's a good note to end on. Thank you very much, Nate, for bringing this all up. We are so glad you were here. Come back again anytime. Nate Langston is European and Consumer Tech Editor at Bloomberg. You can follow him on Twitter and, of course, read all his great work at Bloomberg.com. Thank you for being here, Nate.
Thank you very much. Really I also do a podcast as well.
What's your podcast, Nate?
I have a podcast called Text Message, which is basically everything you just heard me say for the last 2.5 hours, but every week rather than every now and again. So it was quite interesting because a lot of the technology podcasts in the world are obviously very global because our tech companies are so global. And I sort of thought, well, if you focus quite specifically on your country, then you create a little unique voice because no one else is exclusively talking about that. And what's been so interesting is that you get so many American listeners because they say, wow, it gives you so much more context on what's happening in your own country. You don't hear the same stories twice. So
that's great.
It's been really interesting to get the feedback.
Yeah. We focus on our country, but unfortunately, that's really not much of a focus, is it? Good job. It's Nate Langston and Text Message, TECH''S. You can find it on his website, Nate Langston, LANXON.com/podcast. Thank you, Nate.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Devendra Hardawar also has a podcast. He talks about movies/film. He's senior editor at Engadget and the /film podcast, up to episode 494.
Yep. It's going. We're going to hit 500 in January, so making some plans around that.
That's huge. That's so great.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's a good show.
It is a good show, and you've tapped into something people are very interested in.
Yeah, we've been around, I guess, since long before podcasting became very popular. So it was kind of a couple of years after you started this whole network, Leo. So, you were a big inspiration for us. So yeah, just wanted to say that. And I also just started another show just about tech and answering tech questions from people. So that's No More Tech at nomoretech.net, no with a K.
Oh, I was going to say, I think that's the wrong title.
It works both ways. It works both ways because I'm also tired of it.
No more tech. Oh, no more tech. Oh, okay. Awesome. It's on iTunes. No More Tech with Devendra Hardawar. Perfect. What's your podcast, Dwight?
I'm a slacker. I'm clearly a slacker.
You need a podcast.
And I've got the voice for it. I should do it.
You should. We'd listen. Not that I should be encouraging more podcasts. God knows. But what the hell? Let 1,000 flowers bloom. I
would think I might do something other than tech. I think the world needs a good pizza podcast.
Ooh.
Yes.
There's no there. We definitely need a pizza podcast. We need pizza. Dwight Silverman, he's at the Houston Chronicles Tech Burger. Easy to find. Just go to the HoustonChronicle.com/Tech Burger. 95% tech, 5% burgers, 100% yummy. Yummy. Thank you, Dwight. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you who listen to this show and watch this show each and every week. I really appreciate it. We've had a nice live audience. Mark and Carmen were visiting. It's great to have you two. If you want to be in our studio audience, just email tickets@twit.tv. We'll make sure you get a chair put out for you. Of course, if you have to be in the Petaluma area to watch live, there is no ticket charge, though. It's a lot less than seeing Hamilton. It's also a lot less entertaining. But at least you get what you pay for. You don't even have to come here to watch it live. You can watch the live stream at twit.tv/live. If you do that, join us in the chat room at irc.twit.tv. You could download on-demand audio and video of this show and every show we do at our website, twit.tv. And probably the best way to do this is subscribe. You can subscribe in your favorite podcast application, and that way you'll get every episode the minute it comes out. That's what makes it a podcast. It's just automatic. You just get it automatically. And I always forget, and I should remember that we are also on your local voice assistant device. All you have to do is say, hey, voice assistant, listen to This Week in Tech, and you'll get the most recent version of the podcast. We're even on the Amazon Echo's Flash Briefing. The whole network has every one of us put a little thing on every day. It's a different one. So it's a great way to hear a little sampler of Twit in your Flash Briefing on your Amazon Echo. Just look for it in the Echo app. Thanks for being here, everybody. I think it's time to go home because another Twit is in the can. Bye-bye.